Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
All right. Just saw George's tweet. Yeah, 61 is a winter onslaught for Burbank. It's cold, man. It's cold. Welcome. This is Fade to Black. We're back. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, November 11th. Yes. 11/11/14. Lots of ones. 314 days into the new year. As always, we are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California for KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network. I am your so humble host, Jimmy Church. Today's a very important day. On a couple of points, I'm going to make those right now. You know what I do at the front of every show? A big, proud salute to the men and women in uniform all around the world, fighting the good fight, putting it all on the line for us, for this show, for our Constitution, for this country. Today is Veterans Day. Everybody knows I am an Army brat, and I have been around the world, different bases, and have seen the dedication. Myself, chances are you have a relative, an aunt, an uncle, grandfather, father, stepfather, brother, cousin, nephew that has served, and maybe they're not with us. So this is what you do today. You stop and you think. It is so important. You stop and think and you be thankful. And also, today, 1 year ago today, I was reminded of this. I completely forgotten about it. But 1 year ago today, on 11/11, November 11th, 1 year ago today, 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 a.m., I'm driving my previous, I have another one, same color, my Honda Accord up the street, right here, Burbank, minding my own business, just driving 35 miles an hour. Okay, maybe 37. When a car coming from the other direction, in the other lane, decided to cross the double yellow line and hit me head on. And I guess that's 40 miles an hour. You do the math. And I survived. Could have died that day. No joke. And it was pretty crazy. And that happened 1 year ago today. And my point is, also with Veterans Day and everything else that goes on, you never know what the day is going to bring you. You know? And that morning, I mean, after everything happened, after everything, just did what it did, I stopped and I thought to myself, was I a dick this morning to anybody? Did I say I love you to my family? I mean, you just don't know. Had nothing to do with me. It was the doofus on the other side of the road who, for no reason, turned in front of me. But that's, I don't want to get into details. That's no big deal. In the end, it all turned out to be okay. But I got to tell you, it wasn't so much that car crashing into me head on. One day I'll publish the pictures. They're pretty gnarly. And I was driving a brand new Honda Accord. There you go. So there's you want to survive something like that, driving an Accord. So much so I bought another one, same color. But it was that airbag, man. That airbag. Boom. Oh. So, what was crazy was I was knocked out. I was out. And I woke up with this guy, the car horns going, I mean, noise, steam, smoke, all that. But they were trying to open up my car door to get me out. And I didn't know what happened. I barely remember the car crossing the double yellow lines, and I probably said something out loud. I don't know. But that was it. And so I was out. And I just remember looking around and looking at his truck. It was a pickup truck. And my car had skidded up and crashed into a fence, an iron fence concrete thing. And I was like, man. And I looked down and I'm like, okay, my arms are here. Okay. They pulled me out of the car and sat me down, and I was just, and it was that airbag. It was like Mike Tyson in the first round of one of his fights. It was gnarly. All right. Enough of that. Yeah, whiplash and everything else. I'm watching it was crazy. It was a gnarly day. And I was in the hospital, and I was okay. But they threw me in the ambulance, took me to the hospital, and I've got neck braces on and things on my body, and I'm all plugged in, and I'm on some serious drugs at this point. And anyway, I look up and Wowo walks in, and she took one look at me, and I was okay. I just looked awful. I was fine. And the look on her face, and it was one of those days. But my point is, here we are on Veterans Day. You just need to look around and always remember, life is short. You never know. You never know. You never, ever, ever, ever know. You just don't. I was behaving. It was the other guy, and there was nothing I could do. It was bizarre. It was a bizarre thing. So anyway, all right, enough of that. It is Veterans Day, and always let's just stop and pause and give thanks for their selfless dedication. Okay? All right, it is so important. It means so much to me. All right, podcast updated, podcast good, YouTube not so much. We started to get caught up on that today. And hopefully we'll be done in the next couple of days. All right, be patient. If not, just go to the podcast. $2 a month. Who cares? We tried to do it for free. We couldn't. So there you go. We did it as cheap as Libsyn would allow us. What? $2 a month? Yeah. You want to give this away? Yeah, we do. That's what we want to do. What kind of business model is that? Well, it works for the Fadernauts. We want this out there. All right. Faders.org. Again, head over there. Faders.org rocks. Rocks. We're looking for a movie for this Friday. So we need your suggestions. Get him in on Twitter at JChurchRadio. If you haven't followed us today, just follow us right now at JChurchRadio. All of the Fadernauts are here. Everybody hangs out. Hashtag DM RadioNet is what you want to do. Come hang out in the sandbox. I've got it clicking by me right now to my left. I see everything. I try to see everything. Just come hang out with us. If you've got any suggestions right now, come over and you want to see what really happens in the sandbox. It is absolutely remarkable. And I'm going to fire it up here. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Donna Colvin. That's the movie. I'm down for that. I'm down. I'm so down for that. So down. Oh, don't tempt me. I've got the DVD, and that is certainly one of the best soundtracks ever. I am down for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and if anybody, you know what? Let's go. I want to see it right now. Is that what you guys want to watch? Donna, I am down. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. All right? Done right here in the Valley. And please, I want to see. Okay, all right, let's back it up. I see it. Let's get it clicking right now. Hashtag DM RadioNet. Galaxy Quest, we could do that. Stargate SG-1, we could do those too. But wouldn't Killer Clowns? Killer Clowns is that's popcorn that you back up with something sweet, then you go back to the popcorn and maybe chase it with a Coke. It's that kind of movie. Zombie Strippers is better, says Mike Bara, and I'm actually with him. Zombie Strippers is amazing. Oh, man, you had to throw that in. Zombie Strippers is pretty good. Barry, you should come hang out with us in for Fader's Cinema this Friday. We'd love to have you. All right, let's go. Let's get this car rocking. Let's go. Today, actor Stanley Tucci, 54 years old. Stanley, I got to just say one thing I'll say about Stanley Tucci. That guy is one of the busiest actors in Hollywood. There's only 200 actors in Hollywood. Stanley's one of them. And that guy appears in every film and every TV series that is made currently here in Hollywood. He's got a good agent. Also, today, Leonardo DiCaprio is 40 years old. How did he do it? I had to deal with the devil. But I love my Leo. And our dead guy's birthday today is General George S. Patton, born in 1885. Check this out. Born in 1885, died in 1945 at the age of 60. He got it done and then died at the age of 60, George S. Patton, which brings me to my Twitter question of the night. And you know where I'm going with this, but let's just get it out of the way. DiCaprio's best movie. This is a tough one. He's made some really, really great movies. And for me, he's a good actor. He's a good-looking guy. He's tall, crazy. But he manages to play really tall billionaires that are out of their minds. He does that really, really well. But what's his best movie? And I thought about this, and I actually had to go back to IMDb and just look, just to make sure that I was on target. Gilbert Grape right there. I see that from Brad. Yeah, and of course, Liam, I'm with you there too as well. Actually, that's one of my two choices. So, but I'm leaning on. Well, let's see. I want to see what everybody's going to be. Oh, The Beach. The Beach, really? Well, that was actually pretty good. I think The Departed's going to be up there for everybody too as well, because that was really good. And The Quick and the Dead, that was actually very good. Very, very good, Brad. Romeo and Juliet. Wow. What's Eating Gilbert? Great. Because he's not tall and handsome. That's right. Inception, another great choice. Inception was up there for me, but nobody's hit mine. Wow. I'm kind of surprised. How do we do this every night? How do I pick the one that nobody likes? It just doesn't make any sense to me. All right, you ready? Titanic. Titanic's great. See, and that's what I'm saying. Do you realize Aviator, do you guys realize how many great movies this guy has done? It's crazy. But nobody's hit mine. Okay, you ready? What about Gangs of New York? Yeah. Nobody hit Gangs of New York. And I thought, Django, I thought that Gangs of New York, and I went back, and I know it's Daniel Day-Lewis and everything, but I went back and watched that movie so many times. I just couldn't get enough of it. So, I'm sorry. Robert, did I miss it? That's how many. It just keeps. You guys are the best. Gangs of New York was so. Donna Colvin, you're banned from calling into the show. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. We've got a great show lined up tonight, as always. Jason Martell will be with us at the bottom of the hour, 15 minutes away. All right, we'll get to some email. We'll break down some news. And Donna, I love you. This is Fade to Black. Follow me on Twitter right now, at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. That's what you want to do. Come hang out with us. Really. Seriously, it's a good time. Shoot me an email to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, you have tuned into the latest phenomenon in late night talk radio, Fade to Black, starring the inimitable Jimmy Church, showcasing his continuing quest in pursuit of knowledge of the strange and paranormal. Sit back, open your mind, and let's get cracking.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Donna ain't going anywhere. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Email me right now, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Got any questions for Jason? You can do so there. Make it good. Get it past the producers here. Get it into me. Or you can go to hashtag F2, the number 2, F2BQ. Got that right there in TweetDeck, right in front of me. And that is kept clean and simple for my brain. Jason Martell, up. He's in the batter's box. Will be with us in about 10 minutes, bottom of the hour. Let's get to some email. Let's get to some news. King B, he says, you need to rethink your stance on this. He's referring to net neutrality. He says, Obama wants it treated as a utility so they can install a kill switch. much like the Chinese government has. This is not a good thing. Trust me. He also sent, I'll comment on this in a bit, sent me a link about Ted Cruz. Gary W. says, I noticed that your recent shows for the last few weeks are no longer appearing on YouTube. Are you no longer going to post your shows on YouTube anymore? This seems to be, I've gotten so much email about this. And I realize that I do, but we're back in the cycle of things, and I think we got 2 or 3 shows posted today. And we're looking to get everything caught up tomorrow. And I'm only mentioning this again because it seems to be I didn't realize, I just didn't. And we didn't. But we let it slip. Once you're behind, you're just behind the ball. And there you go. So we are aggressively playing catch up. I hate to say it, this isn't a ploy to push the podcast. The podcast is a breeze. That just uploads in seconds, and it's done. And I wish YouTube was that simple to be able to upload. By the time, check this out. When I upload for the podcast, 3-hour show, and I say it's we. I hate to say I. When we upload the podcast, by the time the podcast is done uploading, you barely have enough time to type in the title of the said podcast. How long does it take to go? Episode 148, Jimmy Church interviews Jason Martell about ancient aliens. Boom, and hit enter. The podcast is uploaded. Not so with YouTube. We have to render. And then we have to prep there's editing involved. There's also titling and so forth. But by the time that all of that is done and you render the video, which takes, 90 minutes and 2 hours, then that's got to go over to YouTube and upload. And it's insane. And now we're 10, 15 episodes behind. So there you go. It's a lot of work. But that's it. Okay, so we're dedicated to YouTube. YouTube has helped us a lot, and it's really cool, but it just takes forever, man. Takes forever. But we'll get caught up. Okay, I promise. I promise. Okay. Let's get to some news. What happened to Ebola? That's my headline from yesterday. It's the headline from every day last week. These are the headlines on CNN.com today. The weather, the ferry disaster, ISIS, the Mormon Church, Ferguson, Led Zeppelin, Glenn Beck, which I don't understand why that's a headline, Veterans Day, and that's it. Those are the headlines. There's no Ebola there. Just like I did with MH370. Remember that? How it just dropped off? I'll be doing the same thing here. What happened to Ebola? And I just got to say, mass media, shame on you. All right. And I mean it. Net neutrality. Net neutrality. Senator Ted Cruz on Monday blasted net neutrality as, and I'm quoting here, the biggest regulatory threat to the internet. End quote. In reaction to President Obama's request to the Federal Communications Commission to create new rules of the road. I'm going on here. I'm quoting from Ted. In short, net neutrality is Obamacare for the internet. Huh? What? Oh, man. The Texas Republican and possible 2016 presidential contender said in a statement distributed by his office, and I'm quoting here, it puts the government in charge of determining internet pricing, terms of service, and what types of products and services can be delivered, leading to fewer choices, fewer opportunities, and higher prices for customers. The internet should not operate at the speed of government, end quote. Now, if you take Ted Cruz's statement here and reverse it, what he says here is exactly what Obama doesn't want. It's an insane statement. He's lucky I don't work for Obama or anybody else. Republican, independent, doesn't even matter. But if I'm running against Ted Cruz, for anything. I look at this, I go, dude, what are you saying? Because this is exactly what we don't want. The rules include, for net neutrality, include no blocking of a website or service, so there's no regulation, the opposite of what Ted Cruz says. No intentional slowing down of service by providers, the opposite of what Ted Cruz says. Increased transparency, opposite of what Ted Cruz says. And no paid on service speed. Nothing. You can't pay for faster roads. And that's what it's all about. Net neutrality rules are intended to provide companies like myself access to lines that everybody else gets. And that's it. So Ted Cruz, wake up. I know you're trying to shock and awe by tying Obamacare to this, but that's not the case. The internet was for me, for our brothers, for our sisters, to get out and do our thing. I don't want to have to pay more money to have better internet service so I can have this show compete with Netflix. Because Netflix wants, that ain't right. It's an even playing field. And that's what it's there for. There's no way I'm wrong. And this show is not about me. This show is about you. Think about that for a second. Your very ability to listen to this show and to upstream and downstream to your computer right now, and you've got to go pay more money so you can have a little bit extra bandwidth, more than your neighbor, so you can listen to this show. That ain't right. Plain and simple. That's it. Check this out today from DARPA. Got an idea how to make a flying aircraft carrier? Think about this one for a second. Man, my brain is so wrong. The Department of Defense right now wants to know if you've got any ideas on how to make a flying aircraft carrier. DARPA has sent out a request, I saw it today, on how to develop an airborne platform for drones. This plan, what they're looking for is they want to extend the range of drones. So an airborne aircraft carrier, a way to launch drones from the air and have those drones come back and land back on this airborne aircraft carrier. And they want your ideas. DARPA says that you need to keep the costs low, and they'd like something they could demonstrate within 4 years. And they said, don't get long-winded. Don't make it all deep and heavy. Your entire idea needs to fit on an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper in 11-point type. I'm not making this up. I so much wanted to do something crazy. Just some outrageously nutty idea and send it off. And just see, hey, check this out. This guy, Jimmy Church, sent this in. What do you think about this? This looks pretty good. Let's build this. And but I guess they're short of ideas in the think tank that they got to go out. So, hey, fader nods. I think we're on a mission. Let's get a contest going. Let's get something together. Remember, 8.5 by 11. Fit it on one page of something. Get it into here to me. I have a direct connection to DARPA. And let's have some fun. Sad news today. Big Bang Hank, OG rapper of Sugar Hill Gang, passed away at the age of 57. Why is that important? Why is that heavy? It is so heavy to me. He rapped with Wonder Mike and Master G. Remember those days? But he spoke one of the greatest, catchiest lines in all of music history. That's right. Hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. If your girl starts acting up, that's when you take her friend. And all of us sang that line when it came up on the radio, didn't we? Rest in peace, Big Bang Hank. Bummed me out today. The Rosetta mission's getting ready to go for Wednesday. That's it. Going to do the separation from the lander, from Rosetta. And the crazy thing with this, it's been trailing this comet for 10 years now, is once it separates from Rosetta, it's in a free fall. Trip on that. That's it. Once it goes, it just goes. That's your news. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Shoot me an email to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. When I come back, that's right. You know what this music means. Jason Martell will be joining us. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody.
Are you afraid of the dark? Don't move. Don't touch that mouse. You are listening to Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark matter.
Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Okay, I was looking at a couple of comments. Do I really want the FCC to regulate the internet? You guys missed the point completely. We don't want them. That's it. We just want open fairness for everybody. That's what we want. And if we've got to have regulation to come in to make sure that everybody behaves and doesn't gouge you, I mean, just stick it to you just so you can listen to something or watch a video. Don't you want to watch your kitty cat videos? Don't you want those? Well, you won't be able to stream anything unless you pay for it. And that ain't right. No, we're already overcharged for dish and cable, and it's vicious. It's vicious out there. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I think they should have, and we'll get to Jason in 2 seconds, but I'm just angry. You know what we should have? There should be a network out there. I wish I ran a cable network, a satellite network. I would have a la carte. You only want one channel? Is that you? You only want one channel? You want to watch History Channel? You only want to watch Ancient Aliens 24 hours a day? Order it. Order it. Spend $5 a month. Have a la carte. Maybe I don't want Nickelodeon and Home and Garden TV, which is my favorite channel. Maybe I don't want to watch all of that stuff. Maybe I don't want MSNBC and maybe I don't need that. So why am I paying for 50 channels that I will never, ever watch? I can tell you right now, I watch 3 channels, maybe 4. Showtime, HBO for boxing and Homeland and the cool series that are there. H1 and H2 for the obvious reasons. And Home and Garden TV because I'm always putting in a new sink at the house and I want to know. But that's about it. Why do I have to pay for another 250 channels? Why do I have to have a bill that's $175 a month when I watch 5 channels? I would have an a la carte. That's it. That's what I would do. And I would have 200 million subscribers. Put that as just okay, enough ranting. For over 16 years, Jason Martell has been one of the leading researchers and lecturers specializing in ancient civilization technologies. Mr. Martell's research has been featured worldwide on numerous television and radio networks such as Discovery Channel, History, Sci-Fi, the BBC, and others. Lecturing throughout the world, Mr. Martell has dedicated his studies to ancient artifacts and the Sumerian culture by using the latest in scientific research, supporting the evidence and data. He's now also on his 1 millionth season with Ancient Aliens. I would like to welcome to the program our good friend, Jason Martell. Jason, how are you tonight, sir?
Hey, Jimmy, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back.
Sorry for the rant, my brother, and you were back in the batter's box behaving, but I'm a little angry, with this net neutrality and regulation and what's going on with, Dish and Turner Networks and everything. Do you ever, we'll get to the fun stuff here in a second, but do you
sure,
just get...
yeah, it's a good topic.
Yeah, do you get angry when you open up that cable bill every month?
I don't anymore because I totally feel what you're saying, and I pretty much dropped my cable about, say 4 months ago now, and I pay $15 a month, and that includes full access to Netflix and Amazon Prime. And then I might occasionally rent, let's say, 15 extra videos, which will bring my bill up to maybe $50 a month.
Oh, man.
So I feel what you're saying, and I've been lucky enough to fully detach from cable other than my internet connection, and I use just a data feed to receive entertainment because it's much more cost-effective.
They better behave because that's exactly what I'm talking about, a la carte service. If I had a billionaire buddy, that's exactly what I would set up. I'd fire up a couple satellites and I'd get a new network going, and I would do something a la carte, and I would freak everybody out.
I think in 2015, Jimmy, we're going to see a lot of new services. I know that Sony, Qualcomm out of San Diego, a couple of large conglomerate media companies are going to be offering over-the-wire services where they'll package certain networks that they have deals with. So, who knows? I would hope, though, that within a year you'll be able to pay a nominal fee and have access, just like you said, to the majority of channels that you'd like to receive normally over a cable box.
And also all those unemployed code writers overseas in Eastern Europe. The next thing you know, with all these smart TVs, you're going to have some crazy program that you download, and it'll be just absolutely everything for free. And the next thing you know,
you're right.
Yeah, we're right there, man. And I'll be the first one waving that flag. Oh, as my friends over at H2 right now are going, oh, really? Is that your position, Jimmy? And they're going to edit me out of Hangar 1.
No. We love H2. They also are Ancient Aliens.
Yes, we do.
But it's a growing issue, and, I applaud you for bringing it up because people should have an awareness of their options. And, I, for a long time, was like this, just like you said, this cable bill is ridiculous. I'm using 4 channels. What's the deal here?
Yeah, and I think it's a point that needs to be driven home when we're talking about net neutrality, and before everybody gets involved and starts twisting words around about what Obama has said or what Ted Cruz has just said. I know I just made fun of Ted Cruz, but when you take his statement here and you, like I said, and you flip-flop it, you can apply it on both sides of the fence. What I need to make very clear here, my position is, the beauty of the internet, when all of this started to explore it, yourself included and everybody that's listening right now, when we started to explore, it was about, hey, I can do what everybody else is doing, and this is free. I can go and invest, and it was an even playing field, and it needs to stay just like that. When I heard, we hear these stories about Seoul, South Korea. and they're 1 gigabyte upload and download speeds, and you look at what we have here, and there's reasons for it. It's insane. They just want you to it's not right. And I just want to make it clear to everybody else, and I'm sure you say the same thing. Let's just have an even playing field. I don't want to know that I've got slower internet speed because somebody else is paying for more as a business. It's not right.
Yeah, and this does tailor into other topics which can kind of feed into tonight's discussion, which is, the latest thing happening, at least in the astrobiology realm of science, is, we're about to land on a comet. And this is something that's being streamed over, YouTube, live stream, Ustream. We all stream. I'm joking on the last one. But this is, a very impetus event that the world from a scientific community is watching. And if there was net neutrality laws that, for instance, charged for them to stream this type of information, it's just not going to happen, I think, from a global perspective, because we're going to keep going into this direction of opening up more data and possibly even going beyond Earth, having, an internet that's persistent beyond our atmosphere, allowing us to communicate to robotics and devices in new ways that we haven't before.
That's exactly right. It's not just one thing. It's not one angle, and that's what everybody wants to just boil it down to. No, it's about the freedom of the internet and the creativity of communication and how it has happened. And the very fabric of that is the freedom of it, the freedom. And we have to continue with that. We can't be regulated at all. We cannot allow somebody else to control the internet. The internet needs to be just, free, fair, and expandable. And that's it. And I don't want to lose sight of that. I really don't. It scares me to think that something could change what we've all grown to love. And that's a nightmare. And that's Big Brother. We don't need it.
No. It'll bring the whole movie Hackers back into a new light of, basically an underground revolution to essentially get the internet for free, if anything were ever to come down as a mandate from a government perspective.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I'm just getting fired up just even thinking about it. Let's, one of the things I was excited about and talking to you this week about coming on, we know each other pretty good, and we talk about a lot of these subjects all the time. And tonight, I just decided, let's just hang out, let's just talk and have fun. There's so many different things to talk about, and
sure.
and let's just go there. We were talking about you last night, actually. We had
Carmen. Why my ears were ringing.
Yeah, Carmen Boulter was on last night. And she said that she saw your original demonstration of the Baghdad battery, and she was just absolutely blown away. She was there. She saw it in person, and she actually talked about that last night. And the Baghdad battery today, we don't need to talk about it, but today it's still a freaky real thing. And we're going to talk about, ancient aliens tonight, and not the TV show. Well, the TV show. But let's just let the door swing open and let's just
sure,
see what.
I got a list of good stuff of updates and things, and you bring up Dr. Boulter. Carmen's great, and she has such an esoteric understanding of some of these ancient cultures that I really take off my hat. And when she speaks, I listen. So thank you that you guys would even mention me. I am grateful to. Have done some of these demonstrations and still own these artifacts, whether it be the Dendera light bulb from Egypt or the Baghdad battery. But, quickly, I'd like to just jump into one topic for you, Jimmy, is, as I mentioned, NASA is monitoring what's about to go down through ESA, which is the European Space Agency. They were going to land a probe called Philae on a comet. And they tried to do it today, and then I guess delayed it. So it's happening tomorrow. But Philae is going to land on this comet, and it's being taken there in a spacecraft called the Rosetta. and then it'll make its way down to the comet. And this is the first time we've actually had a probe land and make contact and actually transmit data. So it's going to hook onto the surface of this comet and like drill into it and study the surface. And then the actual spacecraft that deployed the Philae probe, the spacecraft will stay in orbit around the comet through the year of 2015.
Yeah, it's pretty
crazy. So we'll essentially be getting data from the comet's surface as well as its orbit in this tandem setup of probes. And, this is being streamed live by NASA and, of course, in partnership with ESA, the European Space Agency. So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Well, what I find really interesting, and I mentioned this in my opening comments, is that when Philae detaches, it is actually in a free fall. They're not controlling remotely Philae itself. Once it,
wow.
Yeah. So Rosetta itself, they have control of, but once it detaches, that's it.
Don't miss.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's not like they can, if anything goes wrong, they can't control it in any way. It's in a free fall to the comet, and I guess there's a lot of brain power involved, but I don't know about the guys sitting around the table. Okay, this is how we're going to do it, guys. Okay, we're going to follow this comet for 10 years, and Rosetta, we can fly. We can joystick that thing, but we're just going to let this thing detach and fall to the comet, and we'll make sure it happens. I don't know why it's going to free. I don't know why it has to free fall. You would think you would steer it into its landing spot, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak from that perspective of scientific understanding. I can just give a visual, example. Did you see the movie Interstellar this weekend?
No, I haven't. Have you seen it?
I did, and there's, obviously a scene of a very intricate docking scene, and probably, the same thing would apply here, is that they can match the speed from Rosetta and the comet, and then this free fall is probably not, it's more like taking place on a windless day here on Earth, but in space, there's not going to be any outside buoyancy or anything to influence that drop. But it's still interesting to think that they can calculate it that accurately.
Yeah, free fall, literally a free fall. Yeah. Brad Kelly just tweeted. He says, "Don't worry, Jimmy. Gravity still works." I get. Hey, let's talk about Interstellar for a second, because there's a lot of controversy behind the technology and the way it was presented. I know that Tyson came in and commented too. I did go back and start to read his review. And his statements on black holes and so forth. I didn't get a chance to finish it, but you've seen the movie. Now there's two comments I want to make, and I would like your review of the film, which is, number one, it is supposed to be right there in line with 2001, A Space Odyssey, and that's a pretty bold statement, but that is also, if you're going to have a goal with a movie like that, that's your goal. Let's make something as good as 2001 or try to beat that. But also the ending is supposed to be a head scratcher too as well. So my questions are, did it hit you as a science fiction fan like 2001? And then tell us about, without giving it away, tell us about how you felt about the ending.
Well, the second part, I don't want to give it away. As far as the first one, in comparison to 2001, Space Odyssey, the technology is similar, HAL, a computer, and things being very similar to what the movie's technology has. The overriding theme of the movie, again, I'm sorry to answer your question, I have to talk about some aspects without giving it away, but, the overriding theme is that there's fifth-dimensional beings intervening, and we never see them, we don't know what they look like or where they come from, other than possibly the fifth dimension, which is outside of what we understand as our physical realm, and also the fourth dimension, looking at time, possibly beyond just something you've experienced, but looking at it as a physical object from another dimension. It's much more tangible that they can flip or go in and out of these things. And so the movie did a really good job of, yes, touching on the fact that there are outside factors beyond our science and religion that spring up and shift the direction of our evolution or of our consciousness. The other part, part two of your question there, the ending I thought was excellent. It's one of these movies where I have to now buy the DVD and watch it a few times because they did a very esoteric presentation of how you would present time in a three-dimensional space and navigate it. And so for a lot of people, I can see how, yes, that was probably a head-scratcher, but it also raises just a lot of questions when we go back to the beginning statement of there was intervention by fifth-dimensional beings causing all of these circumstances to take place throughout the film. So that, I think, is the head-scratcher in a good way part because, yes, it really opens up the idea that just like Space Odyssey did, we go through points in evolution where nature or the higher power, the universe, what have you, tends to tap us on the shoulder at the right time and present things, whether it's a monolith or what we see in Interstellar.
As a fan of 2001, as I know you are, and most of us are, that listen to this program, I've said it many times. 2001 is probably it's certainly the greatest science fiction film ever made, but it might be, it's right there with The Godfather. One of the greatest films ever made. It is that great, and now the comparisons of Interstellar going, even in the same sentence as 2001, did it hit you as that? Do you think in 20 years we're going to look back at Interstellar and go, wow?
Wow, that's a good question. It's all a generational gap, too, to be fair. If you asked anyone that's age 25 and younger about the film 2001, they'd probably be like, I might have seen it on Netflix. There's a generational gap, too, I think, in catching that vibe. And so I think Interstellar shares that vibe in a new way, with the storylines and media that we would use to influence through popular culture today.
Sure.
It's who knows? But yes, will it stack up? Probably not, because 2001 is just a very it's a very classic film, and the ideology in there with Hal and such, it's just very, very on point.
Okay. Now, what about the ending? How do you feel?
Well, that's what I was saying, is that in the end of the movie, they portray time as a three-dimensional object that you can navigate, and that is probably what threw a lot of people off. I personally think that it's a very interesting way of showing that there's these fifth-dimensional beings, and they're making an active, conscious decision to interact with us and somehow guide us and nudge us. And so there's a lot of crossovers there into the ancient astronaut theory and modern ufology, in the idea that we see things through Star Wars or Star Trek, that there's, more advanced races and they work together and they can't intervene in a race that's still coming up.
Sure.
So to see that play out in a film like Interstellar, where they are intervening and how they might do that, these are very advanced concepts for us to, be traveling through wormholes and black holes and going through points in space that we can only theorize today, but getting this guidance and assistance from fifth-dimensional beings. It's more like taking it on faith. So there's some very deep underlying concepts for the movie Interstellar that at least I picked up on, and I was like, wow, yeah, I'm going to need to watch this a few more times.
And okay, now I'll ask you a direct question. You can just say yes or no. Did you like the ending? In 2001, 90% of the people that walked out of the theater, well, it was cool, but man, that ending sucked because they didn't get it. Did you like the ending?
I love the ending.
Okay,
yeah, it was extremely deep. Yeah, it was some of the kind of hitting on some of the core concepts that I think we're here to grasp as human beings, which are love and knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Live life, love. I say it every day. Life is way too short. Oh, man. All right. We're almost at the top of the hour, and we can start to change gears here. This is Fade to Black on the Bespoke Radio Network. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network, Bespoke Radio for the Masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking with Jason Martell. Now, Jason, you've actually gone from, and I say this with respect, of course, you've gone from researcher, and you're more of a teacher today. People look at you, and you're a spreader of knowledge now. And with when you're in that role of teacher, and I don't know if you've ever expected, that banner above you or below you.
No, it's fine.
What are the questions that are getting asked today?
The most current one, Jimmy, would be at least from, let's say, the chatter of the internet. Maybe not from a more esoteric. There's different questions that come in from different groups, let's say. And so one of the groups is the chatter of the internet that I'll throw out there that is fun to address. Is around Zecharia Sitchen. And a lot of people hear the name Zecharia Sitchen who are new to ufology or exploring ufology or are not interested in ufology at all. Now, outside of that, anyone who's really interested in ufology or likes the ancient astronaut theory, I'm going to be beating a dead drum. But to people who are first exploring ufology or don't really have an interest in ufology, hear the name Zecharia Sitchen and see that he's touched and explored on topics that might challenge them in the area of their personal religion. And so one of the things, Jimmy, is interesting is that, Zecharia Sitchen was a linguist. He was one of about 200 people in the world at the time of his death that could actually translate cuneiform script, which is one of the oldest written languages that we have on Earth. Now, a lot of current scholars and biblical scholars, people who translate the modern Bible into Hebrew and then also acknowledge that there are biblical tales in older languages beyond Hebrew and English, in Akkadian and also cuneiform script, this Sumerian language. So the kicker, Jimmy, is that, Zecharia Sitchen was a genius at being very articulate at understanding cuneiform script from his own perspective. He studied it. He was raised in Palestine, learned the Hebrew Bible, but had questions of his own about some of the translations. Like in Hebrew, the word Nephilim literally translates to those who come down, right? Mm-hmm. So he would, have questions about some of these translations and chose to interpret some of them in a different way than what mainstream science was offering at that time. And again, he passed away at the age of 93, I believe in 2009, so several years ago now.
Right.
But the thing with Sitchen is that he was, again, a master of the words. He was a master of linguistic understanding of cuneiform script and into other Semitic languages, Akkadian and Hebrew. So when people argue today that he was a liar or that Sitchen didn't know what he was talking about or was making things up, people need to understand one thing. Now, Sitchen used his skills of linguist, studying languages, to translate the word, the written word. And all throughout these Middle Eastern texts, we're always mentioning the gods that came down from the heavens. And he was very specific about explaining that there were multiple gods, that they were called the Anunnaki, and that they were expanded upon in many stories, that there was a time when the giants lived upon the earth, in the English version. Well, we have stone tablets that are writing about this and saying it actually took place. So Sitchen essentially was attacking the written word. But along with these written words, all over the Middle Eastern country, we have pictures in stone, reliefs that are written in clay and then made into stone. So without the written words at all, no scholar can refute the fact, from the ancient astronaut theory perspective, that what we see across the Middle East, from the Anunnaki and all these different beings talked about by Sitchen, are depicted in stone to this day as beings that had the power of flight. And what we see across cultures, not just from the Middle East, from South America, King Pakal, various gods like Kukulkan and Viracocha are all depicted as coming down from the heavens and having the power of flight. Throughout the Hindu texts and the Vimana, even in Asia, the emperors being depicted as dragons. So it's ubiquitous across the globe. In ancient times, man depicted having interaction with these beings, that whether they were aliens or more advanced or some lost race, that's the connecting point here. And so anyone trying to refute the work of Zecharia Sitchin also has to then get in line in attacking all the other cultures that reference the same thing, that Sitchin just dove into this one culture, ancient Sumer, which is today's modern-day Iraq. But today, all the ancient cultures around the world have that same evidence.
Well, did Sitchin, because he was a black and white guy, like you said, he's a translator, do you think that maybe translating in a literal sense, he didn't maybe free up his mind and interpret maybe what they were saying, and that's why so many people have issues with Sitchin today?
Well, what he did was he did make interpretations that on some of the pronunciations for what their meanings are, the word Anunnaki, the word Nibiru, certain constellation symbols. So there were things that he made connections to where mainstream science said, no, the 7 dots that we call are representing the 7 Pleiades, the 7 sisters Pleiades. He says, no, that's the symbol of Earth.
Right.
The 7 dots are representing Earth.
Right.
So there's significant differences there. Is it 7 dots of Pleiades or is it Earth? Big difference. So,
yeah, you think, yes.
Yeah, but the thing is that the overriding story, the overriding information being told, not just one phrase or one word, what's the overall meaning being expressed by these people? And again, it's across the globe the same story of information that around 4000 BC, at that time, which is around 6,000 years ago, it seems to be across the globe that we have stories of man interacting with beings they considered to be godlike.
With and again, I don't want to. I've only read enough of Sitchin to understand his ideas, but I haven't studied every single book and every single paragraph, and I'm not a disciple of Sitchin. I can't I can't look at it from that side of the fence. But
Sure.
I do see a lot of blowback now, where I think that when his books were really out there and everything was really going, and millions of books and reprints and all, that he had a lot of supporters. And I think now it seems like there's just this blowback now where it's being contested more than it used to be. And I think my question, I guess, is referring to my older question. Is it because he was just too black and white in the translations and not I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this, and not.
No, he wasn't just. It wasn't just a stale interpretation, and he was embellishing to a certain degree. But you have to understand, it's a line in the dirt drawn by mainstream science that says we've never been visited by anything extraterrestrial.
Sure.
There's no advanced interaction, right? So him jumping over that line, oh my gosh, that throws up flags, right? So that's the underlining issue here. And then when there's no more voice telling people, here's 2 different opinions, mainstream science or Sitchin's view, you decide. When Sitchin's voice is now silent because he's passed away, you still have this other voice saying, come with us, we need you, we need you to believe us.
Right,
so
right.
Unfortunately, I am not Sitchin, and it's not my responsibility to be a disciple of Sitchin and uphold his legacy.
Right.
What I do is use him as a reference and will uphold his information because it is, to me, very valid. So I think the people that have a problem with it and what the loud voices you're hearing are, at the root of it, Christian scholars.
Ooh, okay, let's not go there. But you're probably right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. It's not in a bad way.
I get it.
Intentions,
Yeah.
but
no.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And every time that I have somebody on the show that is on that side of not only with the Nephilim, but with giants and with the Anunnaki and Sumerian culture in general, and contact with something from out there, I get these crazy emails that I'm against Christianity and they always
rest assured, Jimmy, the topics we're going to discuss and about to transition to here in a minute, mentioning the Ark of the Covenant, I am in no way trying to bash the Bible the other way around. I'm trying to uphold the biblical veracity of the information by using the tools we have today to translate and trace some of these tales that, again, in English, it says there was a time when there were giants upon the earth. Many other people might look at this information, non-Christian, and say, well, that's mythology. They were never really gods here. They weren't interacting with these people or, advanced beings. Well, maybe they were. And so everything that references angels or, Elijah being taken up by a whirlwind or Ezekiel seeing wheels within wheels, no. All of that information, I think, deserves to be explored. And so the next topic we're going to talk about, if you're comfortable with, is how some of the other cultures prepared their kings and pharaohs for life after death. And one of the most infamous boxes that we have, this Ark of the Covenant, how its ties to Egypt might be much deeper than what we currently understand from the biblical stories that are out there now.
How so?
Well, so I'll come back to the life after death topic since I got you hooked there with the Ark of the Covenant.
I'm writing life after death down. Hold on. I'll make sure we get back to that.
Great. The Ark of the Covenant is a topic that we covered extensively through, research with Ancient Aliens and the History Channel. And I myself, with Dr. Michael Dennin, who is a physicist at the University of Irvine here in Southern California, we had a life-size ark recreated and did a physical experiment, placing a charge through it and explaining some of the ways that the priests and the way that they had to dress and approach the ark is talked about and documented, brings up a lot of the physical characteristics about it being shown, like in Indiana Jones movie, where it's killing the Nazi soldiers, and it's like a communication for speaking to God, advanced technology, right? Lightning bolts are coming out of it. So some very interesting facts have come out of doing the research, though, and looking into the Ark of the Covenant, talking to Egyptologists and studying artifacts in Egypt, as well as just through biblical archaeology. It turns out that there's a pharaoh named Akhenaten, and Akhenaten has very similar ties to another name we have in biblical language, which is Moses. And it turns out that the story of Moses taking his people out of Egypt to a new place and then having the Ten Commandments delivered to him and placing them in the box, now we now know of the Ark of the Covenant, isn't the black and white story that we've uncovered. And people can even YouTube this if they looked into Ark of the Covenant, Akhenaten. So the Egyptology side of this is that there are depictions all throughout Egypt on walls and crypts and tombs that show the basic depiction of the Ark of the Covenant. It's a large box being carried by a pole on each side, held on their shoulders by two men. And this same golden box is depicted throughout Egypt as a large energy device, a device that contains power. And here comes the kicker. It's the same dimensions that fits the tomb of the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. The same dimensions of the sarcophagus, which really isn't a sarcophagus at all, that big rectangular box in the middle of the pyramid is the place where we place the Ark of the Covenant, and then it powers the Great Pyramid.
Ooh.
So Moses didn't leave Egypt. Akhenaten left Egypt and took his people and his box. And of course, the Pharaoh wanted his box back. That's why he came after him. Now, this box, again, is depicted as a very large, high-energy source, and all the depictions of the high priests how they had to interact with the box, and certain clothing that they wear were all in alignment with how you would handle, for instance, any type of large energy source, being shielded from that energy source. So very interesting information about the Ark of the Covenant, and actually trying to decipher that if we could actually find and locate it, it's probably got some very advanced powers based on its connection with the Great Pyramid and powering it, being the source of the power.
You just opened my brain up. I have never thought of that angle. And I'm watching Twitter right now. Bam! Yeah, that was a good move. That's an interesting idea. There's one question that I do have, and we talked about Anunnakin last night and Moses with Carmen, and she said the issue that she has with that comparison, and let's talk about this right now because we just talked about this last night, that their timelines are 1,000 years apart. How do you fix that part?
Well, that's the part where I'd have to bow to Dr. Carmen's information and hear what she'd have to say. But the thing is, time is a long duration too, and these stories get diluted and washed between each other. What is interesting is to realize that some of these biblical figures also have age ranges that lasted much longer. Moses 1,000 years, and Noah 1,000 years, or 900 years.
Right.
Some of these dates and how long they live, it also reflects on a different time and realm within this cycle that's tracked by all the ancient cultures. Today we call it the precession of the equinox. But essentially, Moses or Akhenaten, these were probably taking place in higher times, closer to the Golden Age. And the lifespans that take place closer to the Golden Age reach more into the thousands of years rather than us reaching, beyond 100 years now at this point.
That's right.
So I'm sure that ties into it, and there's some, dilution of the timelines based on some of the events that might have crossed over each other.
And we always have to take one thing into in context here is, how literal do we start to take the Bible as, a pure history and dates and so forth. We just don't know. So that needs to always, you need to focus on that angle too. But the fact of that sarcophagus, if that is indeed what it is definitely is a box. That's what it is in the king's chamber. And the thought of, in those theories, from Marshall and Christopher Dunn and other great researchers out there about it being an energy source, gold mining, the tie to the water as a power source, and of course its focus at the stars too as well. But we've never been able to figure out where the power would come from. Somebody just tweeted, dude, a 0-point energy source for the pyramid. Pretty much. Yeah. That man, you know what? I'm very rarely stopped in my track, Jason. Nice job. Where do you think this is going? Is this the beginning of this research?
So we're going to open up another vein of this information on the Giza Plateau, is that there is some interesting things afoot. I was very impressed with how the History Channel was able to open literally a door that has been shut for quite a while. Under the paw of the Sphinx, radar penetration has shown that there is a large cavity, and they eventually exposed it to realize that it's a 10-story deep cavern, and at the bottom of the cavern, floating in water, was the tomb of Osiris. And it's still there today. Now, for the first time, which I'll again take my hat off to the History Channel and Ancient Aliens, just last week we aired the special Mysteries of the Sphinx, and in that episode, an Egyptologist literally on camera takes us 10 stories down, and we stare right at the tomb of Osiris underneath the paw of the Sphinx. And, for the last 10 years, this has never been filmed publicly. So I do think that there is probably a new push for information and things of discovery in Egypt. Now, I can't really speak to the current government state. Carmen could actually probably tell you a lot more about the question like this, but I am personally motivated that there will be more of an open book into Egypt's history, and we do know that there are locations all over the Giza Plateau. Anyone can just use Google Maps and just zoom into the desert out there, and you can literally see pyramids that are still covered in the sand. Locations that are still yet to be excavated.
Okay, you've got to tell me. Let's just start at the top of the paw and going through the entrance. What was it like? What did you see? Now that I did watch part of the episode, by the way, but I wasn't there. Take me through that. It must have been extraordinary.
It's a little claustrophobic. Essentially, the flight down is just a very narrow stone-like hallway that could probably fit 2 or 3 people in width, and it's just like a metal ladder that's kind of latched onto the wall, and so they just descend floor by floor, a set of stairs, taking them down 10 sets of stairs until they're at the bottom, 100 feet below the surface, and it's essentially covered in water, and there's 4 large pillars where in the center we see the tomb of Osiris. The pillars have broken off, but the tomb is still there. It's a very large sarcophagus, and it's still intact. So, I would assume that at some point there might be an opening of that, or further discovery of rooms around the tomb of Osiris. The thing here is Egypt, Giza in particular, the 3 pyramids, and especially the Sphinx. Edgar Cayce and many others have theorized that there's a hall of records hidden either under the paw of the Sphinx or in one of the chambers in one of the Great Pyramids, or one of these shafts, like the robot, the Upawat, and a couple others that they've sent it up these little narrow shafts, and then using radar they find a huge room built into the pyramid. So I think, Jimmy, that maybe, crossing fingers, some of these things that were mystical ideas about finding a hall of records, boy, wouldn't that be amazing if it was finally time to unveil some of that technology that might be machines and lost things that are in this room that would shed more light into our ancients' advancements.
I'm looking at the pictures now of the 4 pillars with the sarcophagus in the middle, which is absolutely insane. What was in that sarcophagus?
I don't know. I don't think they've shown what's in it, and I don't believe they've used any radar penetration or anything to understand if there's a body in there or anything. But
man, this is some Indiana Jones stuff right here.
It really is. Yes.
I mean, I'm looking at this and my mind is blown. And it's 10 stories deep. It's 100 feet deep underneath the Sphinx.
It is, Jimmy. And see, here's the connection of the topic, which I know you circled on your paper there, life after death. But the tomb of Osiris, he was basically the god of the underworld, or the god of, not the underworld, but of life after death. And so, being prepared to enter into the next life, him having that knowledge was a very esoteric god, and he had great influence. And it's interesting that other cultures had the same type of relevance when it comes to the process of preparing one's soul for the journey of life after death. The Egyptians had a huge book called the Book of the Dead, and it talks about, the pharaoh's preparation and things that took place, to prepare them with servants and jewelry and all kinds of things that they were going to need in the afterlife. But the part that's always intrigued me, and there's also Mayan ties, which I'll discuss in a moment. The part that's always intrigued me, Jimmy, is that they talk about having specific knowledge, that the pharaoh or the king would have specific knowledge and would train for this knowledge, because in the afterlife, in the process of death, they would encounter certain beings in doorways, and if they knew the right phrase or had the right symbol or key, they could essentially pass into kingship in the next life. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. Why isn't that being taught in school? But the Mayans had a similar thing as well, where it was always going into the underground, where to prepare the soul, the king would, or someone in great power, their death process was, it sounded like kind of arduous. They would have to go through like a dark room of scorpions and then a room of spiders and various obstacles that sounded pretty much of a toil to have to endure. But if you had the knowledge and the fortitude to withstand it, you would reach the reward on the other side. And this seems to go across many different cultures.
Who else went down? How did it get excavated? And was it just an entrance that was blocked, and then everything else was wide open after that?
For the Tomb of Osiris?
Yes.
Yeah, it was just basically a doorway that they found that led to this cavern. So they essentially, under radar, said, "Wow, there should be an opening here." And he, found that opening, and by penetrating the opening right on the side of the paw, it instantly exposed this, long cavity all the way down. I believe they had to pump out quite a bit of water too before they could actually get in there.
It's absolutely insane. They're asking me to post some pictures. Post some pictures.
Well, you know what you can do, Jimmy, is that very simply, it's on my homepage on Facebook, but if you just Google H2 aliens, I believe under videos they have the full episode of Mysteries of the Sphinx available, and you can watch it and see it for yourself in full HD.
There you go. We'll get those links up here in a second. By the way, your new site, pretty good stuff here. And but I'm disappointed. Under media, you've got everybody here but me. What's up with that, man? What's up with that, dude?
Forgive me.
Oh, I was so excited. I was like, yeah, check it out. Oh, what?
Well, I haven't updated that in a while.
So geez. So back to the life after death aspect. And one of the, I really hate making comparisons to movies and TV series and stuff, but if you go back, and all of this reminds me of Vincent Price and Dr. Phibes and the end to that movie, and how the afterlife for him was on a boat, and the Egyptian ties and so forth. And I think that we're right on the brink of making these discoveries. And if you go back to Dr. Phibes, really anybody, go back and watch that. The similarities are pretty creepy. And back then with Vincent Price in that movie, it was all, horror and sci-fi. But it's now, it's like it's coming to pass right in front of us. And we're starting to make these discoveries like every single day. There's something new on Giza.
It's true. Yeah, there are a lot of new sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, where, we just discovered these circular stones that are astronomical in nature, and they're 10 to 13,000 BC. It's it's starting to get kind of interesting. And as I mentioned earlier, just using Google Maps, you can see that there are lots of locations yet to be found. NASA has this 747 packed with ground penetrating radar. It's called synthetic aperture radar, and it allows them to create 3D models of the strata under the surface of the Earth. And so they recently flew it over Cambodia, and we're looking at some archaeological sites there and found some new structures, some new ziggurat pyramids that were, covered by the jungle and underground, literally buried. But using this new synthetic aperture radar, boom, we found pyramids. So there's all kinds of tools. And you talked about, again, in opening the show, net neutrality and such, drones and new devices that are going to be coming out for commercial grade use, for archaeological purposes and such.
Right.
We're going to have a lot more access to surveying our Earth. And it's a very exciting time. And to think that somebody might want to limit us from that data, that's just not going to happen.
Have you ever gone into Google Earth? Well, I'm sure you have, but I would love to hear your answer. Have you ever gone over Egypt in Google Earth? I mean, just spent days, because I have. Have you ever done that?
Well, maybe not days, but I think as we've discussed before, and Dr. Boulter might have discussed this last night even, is that the geological changes that you can track using tools like Google Earth, you can actually see terrain changes and things where, rivers have either meandered over thousands of years, like the Nile,
right,
used to lap up on the shores of the pyramids and is now many miles away, or looking at Lake Titicaca or various other sites around the world that you can look at the geological strata and see where shorelines have changed and such. So that's very powerful information. And of course, we use robotics and algorithms and scripts to automate that process and look at that data over time lapse and discover things very quickly by just crunching through this data so vigorously that we can do today.
Yeah, I've cruised over Egypt back and forth in Google Earth, and there's stuff out there in the middle of the desert. You can find it, and nobody goes out there because it's so remote. But you can just go and look, and there's just weird stuff all over the place. You can see it in the sand, and you can see shapes. You can see there's so much stuff out there that is unexplored and we don't know about. And just imagine, and I've thought about this, what if we just went and vacuumed up all the sand, just sucked it up? What would be underneath? You think about that for a second. We don't know. It's just all covered in sand, plain and simple.
Well, that you bring up a good point, too. There's a lot of these sites. Peru is an example. Everyone's heard of the Nazca lines, the long-looking runways. On the mountainside in that region, there's a large figure called El Astronato, and it's a huge figurine of a humanoid raising his hand, waving. And you can only see this from the air. You can't even make it out from the surface. But if you're in a plane flying over Nazca, there's El Astronato waving to you. And so it turns out that in many of the foothills and mountains of Peru and Bolivia, there are these diagrams and figures, more specifically mathematical diagrams. Eric von Daniken is probably one of 3 people that have actually filmed these, probably because they're in such a remote area that if you tried to go there on foot, it's very treacherous. There's huge scorpions and rocks that'll cut you. It's very hot. Not fun. But with a plane, and you just fly over some of these areas in Peru, there are these mathematical diagrams. They're geometrical shapes, and they're very, very large. Now, again, if you're on the surface, you'd never even be able to make it out.
Right.
But from a plane, you see them. I think you could probably Google, geometric patterns in Peru or something like that. But it's actually very rare footage because, like you said, not many people know of these spots and don't pay them much attention.
I was watching last night. It's funny you bring up Nazca. I was watching last night after the show, doing my normal YouTube documentary search just to find cool stuff. And I got into Nazca for some reason. And after Carmen Boulter last night, you would think I was, going to go watch some Giza stuff. And I didn't. I somehow ended up on Nazca. And I found a video last night. It's just a year old. One of the guys down in Peru that has mapped every single glyph there, and he was up to 324. And I didn't realize with the Nazca lines, I didn't think it was that numerous, but he was at 324. And they're up in an ultralight, him and this researcher, and he's got his video camera, and they're flying around looking at these glyphs, and goes, hey, what is that one called over there? And the pilot, and he's been doing this for 30 years, mapping everything. He looks over and he goes, I don't know. I've never seen that one. And they flip the plane around and they videotape this. And it was like of a flower, but it was large and it was on the side of this hill. They land the plane. The guy was like, you just found another one. I didn't know about this. You discovered number 325. And it just goes to show you that there's still so much more to see. It's such a large spread out area and there's so much of it, but there's more being discovered every day. It was a fantastic video. I couldn't believe it. So 325 glyphs carved in Nazca. I had no idea. I thought it was a few dozen.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, 325. And it was a flower. It was a large flower. You could see it, a flower with leaves and a stem, just carved on the side of this hill. The lines were white. It was extraordinary to see, but to see this the pilot's reaction. He's been flying over there for 30 years, mapping everything, and there's another one. And it was huge too. It was like 300 feet tall. Yep.
Well, there's like you said, always things being discovered. I should also just quickly mention in that special Mysteries of the Sphinx that we were just touching on. Another area that they cover is kind of looking at some of this information about this idea that there could be a second Sphinx. A lot of the Egyptian hieroglyphs depict a Sphinx looking to the west and a Sphinx looking to the east. Well, we know of the Sphinx looking to the east, but we don't know of the Sphinx looking to the west. So all throughout Egyptology and hieroglyphic information, it's done in pairs and redundancy: 2 pillars, 2 masks, 2 birds, 2 sphinxes. So it's interesting to think that there could be a second Sphinx, or at least maybe the remnants of the Sphinx that they haven't found. They even brought up the idea that there is a possible replicated area of the Giza Plateau on Mars, essentially 3 pyramids and a eroded Sphinx, not Cydonia. I'd probably ask and divert that information to Mike Bara to address, so he'd probably have comments. But it is interesting to realize that we're looking at here things on Earth and finding connections, but wouldn't it even more raise the eyebrows to see these same connections of patterns and pyramids and things found within other planets on our solar system?
Somebody just tweeted, I want to jump back here about Bob Fletcher. We're talking about the Sphinx. Oh, my comment was this before I get to Bob Fletcher. We have to remember that the Sphinx was completely buried, up until modern times. And it was only the head that was sticking out. And if there was another Sphinx, absolutely, it could potentially be buried. I was just referring to that. There's so much stuff buried under sand there. We have no clue. If I had the money, I would just line up dump trucks and I would just start digging out Giza. I would. I'd just remove all the sand. Anything that wasn't sand would stay. Sand, go.
Or we could just get a spacecraft size like air blower and kind of lower it and just like they do with gardening tool, but a really big one, and just start blowing it away there.
I'm so down for that.
I think again, using ground penetrating radar and some of the tools that are going to start coming into the public sector. I mean, NASA isn't really even a government agency so much as it's seeking funding. I mean, Google just bought Moffett Field, I think, something like that from them. These tools that they have and the access to them in the public sector is going to increase. Being able to, utilize this technology from NASA or any other subcontracted companies, JPL or Goddard Space Center, any of that can be contracted through a civilian corporation. They just you need to sign some paperwork and pay the right fees. So who knows what will happen when more people like Richard Branson and Robert Bigelow and Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk. Tesla's gone, obviously, but he's still one of the great.
There is a connection.
The reins.
There's a connection with the brain there. We got it. We all got it.
Yeah. So we're going to get there.
This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking with our friend Jason Martell, and it's an open conversation tonight. We're just going to go where our brains go. I just want to let you know, Jason, we've just tweeted out and posted the Sphinx episode. So the links are up. Everybody listening, just go over to Twitter @JChurchRadio, #DMRadioNet. The links are up. They are there. I'm going to watch the whole episode after tonight. I just danced through it last week. I'm admitting to that now. Okay, I'm guilty. We had a crazy week here last week, so I didn't watch a whole lot of television.
Well, it's funny, Jimmy, is I haven't even seen season 7. Again, as I mentioned in the earlier part of the show, I don't have cable. I don't have H2.
That's crazy.
So if I want to see myself in the episode, I have to watch it online as well. I never know if I'm in the episode or not, or how they're going to edit it until it shows up live on the air. So
now,
that's part of the fun for us as well.
Okay, tell me the truth, just between me and you. Do you ever watch Ancient Aliens? Do you ever go and watch yourself, or do you just ignore it?
It really depends on the episode. I got to be honest, I probably don't watch them all. It's seventh season now. I think we're approaching close to 100 episodes. So I would like to say that I try and watch them all, but I do hone in on the ones I'm involved with, and we'll usually either skim through them or watch them, when it's convenient.
How is the writing process done there? Are you involved in that at all?
Oh yeah, they're very hands-on with the team of researchers that they source from, and the producers that they have are very astute in searching out new angles and making connections and really drilling down to find new resources. So I've always been impressed with the production leg of its Prometheus Entertainment that really is leading up all of the the shows that you see for Ancient Aliens, and really Kevin Burns, who's the executive producer, is really just quite a genius when it comes to the final editing of what you actually see on the air. So as I said, I might film, let's say, 4 hours of information, and maybe a minute of my time gets used.
Right.
Or it could be 30 minutes. That makes the air. That all depends on the final edited version and the direction and tone that they choose to take. So it really, it's out of my hands, if you will, for what you see on the air, but we all contribute to the overall storyline and information. It's not like they're saying, read this. They basically say, here are areas that we want to discuss based on your knowledge and understanding of these topics. How do you feel about that? And that's where everyone is approached, and then that's what you're hearing on the air.
Will you ever stop while you're filming and go, hey, wait, this isn't quite accurate. We need to change this right now. Are you able to do that? Do you have that kind of freedom to make sure?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a couple of episodes that I've bowed out of just based on the sensitivity of business things that I was involved. As an example, it's not a big deal, but I many years ago founded a site called GodTube. It's like YouTube, but it's a family-friendly Christian version, GodTube.
Okay.
And so at the time, being involved with GodTube and from a business side, one of the shows that Ancient Aliens happened to be talking about was like, the connections with Satan and aliens. Like, could Satan be an alien, And so at the time, the sensitivity of discussing Satan or talking about anything like that, I just didn't really feel like was a good idea, based on other things that were happening in my life for business reasons. So,
sure.
For whatever reason, anytime someone is uncomfortable for a topic, then of course they could choose to say, I'm not going to talk about that, or
Was it because you believe Satan is an alien, or was it because it was just the topic in general?
It was just a topic in general that didn't make well for media of running GodTube, and someone, you say one sentence and then that can be used as a sound clip. So
absolutely, trust me, I know.
Basically, like my buddy Georgio, in a good way, he's become a meme, across the globe 6 times over. But it's also certain phrases and things that that catch on. So, we just try and be careful for what gets put out there. And I know that Ancient Aliens, now going into its 7th season, is obviously challenged by what topics they can bring that are fresh. Gosh, what can you talk about now? Maybe in the 8th season or 9th season, who knows? I'm always just as amazed when it gets renewed by the History Channel, but not surprised based on the numbers. it's a very successful show.
Yeah. It's the biggest show that they have until my show comes out in January. So look out. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm talking about. There you go.
Hey, what is it like for you now? I want to get back into some fun subjects, but you have to admit, I mean, it is the, it's like the Cosby Show of our generation. This is a very, very successful show. Can you go down the street and shop now for groceries, or do you just, or is your private life gone?
Oh, no. I have complete anonymity. Anonymity. Jeez.
That is it's a hard word for me, too.
There. Yeah, anonymity. Pusillanimous, that's another good word. No, it's actually quite fine. I very rarely get approached. Sometimes it's more of the hardcore fans. I'm in about 80% of the episodes, and when I'm in them, my prominence is nowhere near that of Georgio's, and obviously Georgio with his hair, he's just so easily recognized. So Georgio and I are really good friends, off camera, and whenever we would go hang out, he never has his hair up unless he wants to be recognized, because boy, people see him instantly. And I'd share a couple of stories, when we were younger in the series, maybe in our second season. It wasn't so crazy yet, right? But we were, I think, with our significant others on a New Year's Eve, and we were standing at the back of a line to get into this club in Los Angeles. And we strolled up to the front just to see, is there some VIP or something we can pay to get in? This is ridiculous. It's freezing.
Right.
And sure enough, these guys are like, hey, it's the guys from Ancient Aliens. And sure enough, they made a huge deal to get us in. So that was nice.
It was Georgio's hair, not yours, right?
It was Georgio's hair, yes. So, it's very rare for me that it is occasional that more of the hardcore fan will recognize me and say, hey, I know you from somewhere. And so I'm always very humbled, to meet someone in person that enjoys the show.
It was fascinating for me to see with Georgio out at Contact in the Desert, which is just a great, event, and you and I were there. And I went in and I watched one of Georgio's presentations. The room was packed, and if you remember, there was no air conditioning. You remember that day.
I remember.
You remember that. So I go in, and there's 1,000 people in there. It's seat 600. It's packed. And after his presentation, and he came up, and him and I took some pictures in the front of the room together. The mob that was around him, not in a crazy way, in an Elvis sort of way. He's got his fans, man, and it wasn't like that for too many people there. But Georgio, he's dealing with it today. I mean, he is seriously dealing with it. I don't know if it's the hair, if it's his smile, or what it is, or the facts that he is spreading, but he has certainly got his supporters out there, and they are rabid.
Well, it just works. What he's doing works, and he's a great, gentleman to be carrying that torch. And you're right, he does get the attention. A couple more insights. At the Contact, as you were saying, So here's a little, scenario. Tom Danheiser, who's the producer of Coast to Coast, he's cruising around on his golf cart, and I'm like, hey, how's it going, Tom? And he's like, oh, I'm going to pick up George to go on the panel, and I'm on the panel too. It's George Norrie's panel.
Right.
So he's like, hop on. I'm like, great. And so I'm on the golf cart now, and then we swing over to George's bungalow, and hey, George, hop on the golf cart. And so now I'm on the back of the golf cart, and Tom and George are in the front, and I'm just kind of looking in reverse, right, and driving to the panel. And it was kind of nice not having to walk because obviously, as you mentioned, it was extremely hot. So after the panel, I forgot what we were doing, but we all hopped back on the cart, and it's this time George and Tom in the front, and then me and Georgio in the back. And literally, there's this mob of people trying to take pictures, and up to the point where the cart starts literally moving, there's this girl trying to sit in his lap to get a picture, and she's almost falls because the cart's moving away. I mean, it was that hands-on, right, where people were really trying to get some exposure with Mr. Tsoukalos. So good for him, though. I'm so proud of him. It's really great.
Okay, I'm going to be vain. I'm going to tell you my story, too. I had the same thing happen. We were invited, Wowo and I, and it was very cool. We were invited down to Eric Von Daniken's bungalow to go hang out with Eric.
Yeah.
And so we go down, and it's just we're alone with Eric, and we go up and we take some pictures. And he had promised that the two of us would smoke a cigarette together. So we had our little event where the two of us we sit and we light a cigarette for each other, and we chat, and it was very cool. I mean, amazing. But he's getting ready to speak in the big hall. So we go down, and the golf cart pulls up, right? And Wowo, Rita, Rita, my wife, we were going to walk back, and Eric goes, "No, man, jump on the cart." So we jump on the golf cart, and we roll back up into the facilities there, and I'm in back of Eric, and watching everybody. It was like the parting of the Red Sea. Watching everybody look, and I'm like, wow, that's what it's like, to be Eric. And he said, walk with me up. So I forget his assistant's name. What's his name?
Ramon.
Yeah, Ramon. So Ramon goes, "Come on, Jimmy, walk with us." And so Ramon's in front, Eric's in front of me, and he's behind Ramon, and I'm behind Eric. And you
need some slow, swanky music in the background.
Dude, it's exactly what it was, man. And so we walked up and walked through the crowd. Rita's behind me, and we walked through, and watching everybody just speak and reach and touch and autographs and pictures all the way up those stairs, all the way into the hall was a pretty amazing thing to see, because you're seeing it through his eyes, like you're saying with Tsoukalos. You're there, you're watching everybody, and the energy focused on one individual like that. And he's 80 years old dealing with it. But it was pretty fun. That was a pretty cool moment. For me, it was one of the funnest times there at Contact, and there was a lot of great ones, as you know. But that was a pretty cool moment for me, hanging out with Eric like that.
I'm extremely grateful to be part of the UFO, / ancient society. The community has been extremely supportive and continues to grow. And, it's a new generation. We mentioned Sitchen earlier, and, Sitchen's generation of followers going back, let's say, 30 years up to this point, most people who became Sitchenites, or people who were interested in Sitchen, were also in tandem aware of Eric Von Daniken's work and Chariots of the Gods. The difference is that they were always kind of separate, meaning, Eric had his research looking into, locations and artifacts, the visual depictions, where Sitchen was separate in his own camp, looking at the linguistic evidence, the word, the translation. But you put the two together and you have a happy, harmonious, unity of knowledge, a base of information. But they were always separate. Georgio and myself kind of picked up that torch. He's in Eric Von Daniken's camp. I've always been under the Sitchen camp. But it's not like that anymore. Georgio and I are in the same camp, right? There's no more him and them and this and that. So there are a lot of changing structures to how we approach this information going forward. And boy, it's so gratifying that the public in general is just much more open to these topics and exploring them with the idea that, whether it's aliens or some lost civilization or higher beings, fifth dimensional beings, this, that, I think it's just very healthy for us to be challenging our scientific norms in this manner.
Yeah, and we're all in this together. All of us, every one of us, the audience listening right now, we are all part of this, and we're all moving this together. And we are no longer, a silent voice, because when you look at what's going on, not only with the internet, but certainly the explosion of what Ancient Astronauts has started. There was always the once a year documentary, on Contact and UFOs. That we always look forward to, but now there's 24-hour-a-day programming on 2 or 3 channels, if not 10, and Ancient Aliens has started, and what it shows is we know something's going on, and we need to get that fed. Those programs would not be on if there wasn't an audience watching. Plain and simple. There is no argument here. And when I hear from debunkers about this and they want to argue about it, it's like, dude, you guys, you skeptics, you debunkers out there, and they all listen to this show too. That's the funny part. I'll do this show, and the next day they'll all comment on it. Well, like, well, then what are you listening for?
Right.
It's
I hate to listen. I hate the guy, and I heard what he said.
Right. And I listened to the whole show. It's so funny. But those guys are the severe minority. I used to say, how much we have, to work to get the word out, and I mean it. We're rolling that rock uphill all day, but you know what? It's getting easier. And those guys are such a small part of the minority out there. They have no idea. How many people do you think? Take a guess. Take a stab. With everything that's out there, Hangar One, Ancient Astronauts, America Unearthed, any one of these fringe science shows that are on, how many millions are watching per week? Per week, not per year.
Well, I can give you an idea. And this might answer why Ancient Aliens is so sporadic as to how they release new shows, right? So they usually commission about 7 to 10 episodes per season. And so when they release a new show, the viewership is around, I believe, 1.5 million people are watching each time it airs.
How many? Wait, say that. Say that again.
I believe it's around 1.5 million people
per episode.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's
insane.
So the funny thing is, though, Jimmy, is that when people are watching, when they have that number. Now, let's say it's not a new episode, it's a rerun. It's either a 0.9 to, again, a 1.5 viewership. So people like the content because whether it's a rerun or a new episode, the numbers are still the same.
Isn't that, well, you know what? It's not mind-blowing. We knew this. We knew this. And it just makes me feel good. And
yeah. I'm sure A&E Networks feels good about it too, and that's why they gave Georgio a spin-off show, In Search of Aliens.
Exactly my point. That's exactly my point. So, okay, now listen, I'm backed up on about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions that some of the listeners wanted me to get in. So we're going to bang through all of that. Just let me do this really quick. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I am your humble host, Jimmy Church. We are talking with Jason Martell. Ancient Aliens, Ancient School, jasonmartell.com. You can go and check it all out there. Okay. I did a bunch of simple stuff. Let's just bang it out. Have you seen the Russian Nazca lines? Have you checked those out yet?
I have not.
Okay, I'll send you some links to it. The story broke this week, but pretty amazing stuff. Pretty amazing. So I'll send you that. Somebody just tweeted, oh, yeah, you know what? You and I haven't talked about this in a while. What do you think about the Malibu deep underwater base now that we've put some months behind us since the original stuff came out that we did here? Where are you at now with the Malibu base?
Probably not. I'm going to go in a direction you didn't expect, but here's a tie-in. There's a new video out on Netflix called Mirage Men.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've got it up on jimmychurchradio.com.
Yeah, so that would line up with knowledge to understand that, there's now a documentary out there where actual Air Force personnel are on record talking about their interest and involvement in UFO sightings and giving false information to people, but also tracking very heavily what's going on in the UFO community. So I think when we see things like the Malibu base or the possible idea that there could be a base there or some kind of outlet or inlet for a craft, it rings the bell towards this video Mirage Men that there is this underlying secret connection of, not our space program, not our military, but, some type of utilization of technology that's involves space travel. So more than likely, there are bases, in all kinds of interesting places around the U.S. We know that there's an intricate tunneling system. That's how the government and such can move troops and planes, but also classified technology that uses these, systems of transport. So it's very possible, in my opinion, still that Malibu thing could be an entrance way, just like we have in Cheyenne Mountain and other places, to this underworld connection. The system of tunnels and such that probably house and transport all kinds of technology.
Did you hear about the recent reports of radio signals being recorded out of Malibu? Did you catch that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that popped up. We're working on that right now, and that's an interesting aspect. There was a ham radio operator named Emmett that his house is right in front of the base. And the video that is out right now, he even says, with the images that we put up on the web, he said if you could blow this image up, you could see my house on PCH in the background. That's where I'm at in proximity to the base. And he's done the recording. It's pretty fascinating to listen to. I don't know. I'll send you some of the files. When you listen to it, it sounds... I hate making movie references. It seems like I do it all the time. But it sounds like Alien. Well, what I mean is it doesn't sound like something... you don't recognize it. It doesn't sound like something that you've heard before. It's one of those things you listen to and you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. I've never heard anything like that. That sounds pretty strange. That's what it sounds like if I'm making a weird description, but because I can't describe it.
Well, that's actually an interesting point, though, because sometimes I'm asked to describe, how someone would interact, would respond to seeing a UFO, or if I'd seen a UFO, how I'd respond. And, it's an interesting way to explain through an analogy that when we don't have a visual reference or an understanding even to a sound for the same line of communication as a reference, here's a good analogy. If I tried to explain to someone how I felt if I were to see a UFO, or how someone would feel, it's the same way of trying to explain, for instance, having experienced a thunder shower for the first time. Meaning, if I'd never experienced this, and neither had you, and I said, Jimmy, I walked outside today, and all of a sudden this water was falling from the sky, and there were these large bolts of light, and this thunderous sound like someone was dropping a bunch of rocks. It was amazing and so impactful. I do my best to try to explain it to you, but there's no way to convey the feeling of a thunder shower until you experience it.
Sure.
Same thing with any paranormal event, a UFO sighting or what have you. There's no way to convey that because there's no similar line of comparison to who you're trying to convey it to.
Have you ever had a sighting yourself?
I did have one sighting. I don't really talk about it much.
No, I've never asked you before.
Not that impactful.
Yeah.
But,
okay, tell me about it.
When I was in college, basically in San Diego, I witnessed this thing flying over the horizon. So I got to see it from pretty much a 90-degree or 180-degree view of the horizon. And so I'm watching it travel from right to left. And it essentially looked like this cloudy mass, and the object separated into separate objects and then came back together. So my mind was just never able to click with anything that I could recognize it as: a plane, a bird, helicopter. Nothing ever registered. So I was a little taken aback by that, and I think that was probably one of the initial things at age 20, having seen that kind of sparked my interest. This is like 1995, 96.
Right.
They were just turning on the internet, which kind of initially sparked me in the direction of wanting to explore some of the things that we're doing with NASA and such. I think I mentioned to you last time I was on the air with you, but when I said I started to explore these topics, I turned my focus on Mars and did spend several years studying Mars, and simply because the principal photographer of all the cameras we have on the surface of Mars, even today, is controlled from a company in San Diego where I was attending college, Malin Space Science Systems. So I've just been very fortunate, Jimmy, in the things that I'm interested in to try to go right to the head of the source, or the horse's mouth, if you will, to get the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the answer I found is rather intriguing.
We brought up Bob Fletcher earlier. He's back. I'll just make it open-ended. What do you think about his comments that he's making now that we're a month away from Nibiru?
You know, unfortunately, to be honest, I'm not familiar with Bob Fletcher.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Moving on. So much for that. Hey, he's saying we're a month away. My issues with that is I would think that we would have some.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Some clue of something.
Please.
Yeah, we would have some clue of something. A month away, I think we would be able to see it with the naked eye.
Well, look, in 2003, there was this nice lady named Nancy Leader, she's still around.
Yes.
Doing Zeta Talk, and Nancy at the time made a prediction that Nibiru was going to come around in 2003, and that she was getting this information from the Zetas. And at the time, there was a radio show host named Lou Gentili. And so Lou came to me and was like, look, man, we need to do a debate with Nancy Leader, and you need to put this to rest about Planet X. Is it coming or not, right? Because it was really a hype on the Internet.
I remember. Yes.
So we did a radio show, and we did a debate, and this was one of the questions that we posed to the Zetas live to Nancy, because she was channeling this information where you'd be able to ask her a question and she'd go into Zeta Talk mode and answer it. So we were like, okay, I want the Zetas to answer this if they have all this accurate knowledge of Nibiru.
Oh no, you didn't. You did not. You
and
did
don't
not.
Delay. I want you to answer this instantly because this is coming from Zeta Talk now, right?
Right.
Tell me the square root of 147 divided by 15,001.
And
Zeta Talk, Nancy's brain is not able to interpret this information fast enough to give you a human response, something along those lines. So my point being not to belittle Nancy Leader because, again, maybe she is channeling information, but how that's interpreted and conveyed to us, I don't think is very accurate, as we found out. And so I'm very grounded in anyone making a prediction about the return of Nibiru in our lifetime, or someone taking webcam photos of seeing two suns currently now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be aware that, we have a very large amateur astronomy community across the globe. And usually they're the ones, the guy at home with his telescope on the roof, they're the ones that see Hale-Bopp or Shoemaker-Levy 9 or any type of large solar system event is usually seen by an amateur and then escalated to the professional community.
That's right.
If there's any type of solar system event where there's a object 4 to 8 times the size of Earth, like the Sumerians described ancient Nibiru,
right,
we're going to see it.
They're going to. It could be some of the tiniest asteroids too, as well, that have been discovered. It always seems it's somebody in his backyard, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not comfortable with that because that's an accident. I want some professionals to find that first, and I want them to actually say we've been tracking it for a couple of years. We're okay. This accident stuff with the backyard guys, I'm happy that they do see it, but you know what I mean? Doesn't that feel a little wrong to you in some sense?
Yes.
I thought
the Near-Earth Asteroid Detection Program has been belittled for quite a while because it's very underfunded, and a lot of the latest data that comes out of people looking at analysis of the Oort cloud, which is like this large asteroid belt beyond Pluto, like billions of miles out there, there's a lot of theories to say that we are bombarded periodically, even over millions of years, by asteroids and comets dislodged from this Oort cloud. So, the extinction of the dinosaurs, if you look at the surface of the moon and any other planets out there, it's got, bombarded fragments of comets and asteroids hitting it. We don't get a lot of that because Jupiter sucks a lot of it in. But who's to say that there couldn't be an extinction level event, God forbid,
right?
That wiped out the dinosaurs or caused the last great flood. We see things like the Tunguska in Tunguska up there in Russia, right? There was some explosion. It was an asteroid exploding over the atmosphere that caused this, several miles of forest to just be demolished.
If there wasn't,
we should probably have a little better detection system.
If there was no Jupiter, there would be no us. That's
probably true.
That is a fact. All right. Hey, we were talking about this. Let's take some phone calls. 323-825-5045. And everybody that was calling in earlier, sorry, I didn't say the phone lines were open. But they are open now. 323-825-5045. You can Skype into Fade to Black 14. Come hang out with Jason and I, everybody. Okay, 323-825-5045. They are open. Jason, somebody just tweeted, we danced around this and then we got away from it. Can you touch a little bit more on the Pharaoh leaving Egypt to retrieve the Ark?
Well, I don't really have a lot of specifics because it's a current topic of discussion, other than there's a lot of information in Egyptian hieroglyphs and reliefs that talk about the Ark of the Covenant being used as a large energy source and it being something that was revered throughout Egypt. People need to understand, too, and this is, kind of touchy, but when we look at a lot of things like the Ten Commandments, there is writing within Egyptian Book of the Dead and various other places where those Ten Commandments are found in Egypt before they were written as the Exodus would portray, afterwards. They were already in existence and are found within Egypt. So there's a lot of references to the Exodus, the Ten Commandments, the Ark of the Covenant, and all of this information kind of existing or having a deeper connection with Egypt, where Moses was possibly, again, this pharaoh, Akhenaten. And Akhenaten was just one of these interesting pharaohs that departed the normal dynastic view of these many gods and focused on the one god, the Aten, essentially the sun. And so there's just a lot of interesting information there that, it touches a lot of topics. We used to have a calendar system before Judeo-Christian use of the calendar now that was more based on astronomy. Most cultures around the globe had very accurate calendar systems based on astronomy and movements of the stars. And Akhenaten had knowledge and followed this one idea of the Aten, just basically a reference of the sun.
Mm-hmm,
and if you think about it, the sun is everything that gives us life is caused by the sun. Every plant bends towards the sun. When we wake up, we feel the sun's energy. We get full of life and we come alive.
We feel safe.
So we feel safe, right? It does feel good in the sun.
Yes, it does. Well, dark.
Then in the darkness and the cold,
right?
Not so much. And so there's just a lot of interesting crossover to the religious views of Akhenaten and the understanding of a one God, and how it then changed into this view of the Son of God through Jesus being the one God, and carried into today. So Akhenaten was this transitional pharaoh from the old times into what we have just been experiencing the last 2,000 years. But to take that topic a little further, we are now just entering the age of Aquarius, and from an astronomical perspective, that's really interesting. Everyone's seen on the back of a bumper this symbol of a fish, maybe a symbol of a fish with a little cross in it, and they would denote that as a Christian symbol for Christianity. But the symbol of a fish actually predates being used as a Christian symbol, and it means the age of Pisces.
That's right.
For the constellation of Pisces. Well, we just moved out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. So the whole idea of the symbol of a fish and Christianity and the last 2,000 years being predominantly around that ideology has now shifted and is now shifting into a new age, the age of Aquarius. Ever since the Mayan calendar rolled over there into 2012, many ancient sources have been tracking the astronomical ancient views of time and it's now a time of change. And it's very interesting to see this taking place.
This question comes in from Renee. She says, in your opinion, I actually meant to ask you this earlier, but I need to get this in. In your opinion, why did Zahi Hawass, as recently as last year, deny nothing under the Sphinx paw?
Oh, Zahi Hawass.
I know.
Let me try and let me do my Zahi Hawass interpretation here if I can.
Do it.
Show me one shred of evidence. I want to see one shred of the evidence. Zahi Hawass. I remember doing a debate, not with him, but on the Art Bell show. I called in and was, trying to make comparisons between Cydonia and the face on Mars and the pyramids there with the Sphinx and the three pyramids. And I asked him, I said, do you see any connection to this? And he was, show me one shred of evidence. I'd be like, well, I'd love to show you the evidence. Zahi is, he's come under a lot of controversy of selling things to the black market and what have you. I personally don't really have a comment or an opinion on Zahi other than my observation of him over the years. I found that he has always been, being the director of antiquities for the Giza Plateau, he's always, or was, in a very interesting position because anything found would come under his watch, under his eye, and the way he would reveal things to the media when they would open a tomb or do things was always very controlling, almost Nazi-like. So, and I don't mean that in a totally derogatory way, but very structured, very, you step here, you turn that stone over, not that one. You stay here for this amount of time.
Listen, we understand that. Okay, so you don't, that metaphor, it's spot on the money, and the reputation is already there. So don't apologize for that because it's the way it is. It's
yeah, that's the way it is.
Yes. Okay, where were we? Back to Zahi.
Go ahead.
The denial. He obviously knew it was there for a very long time. Carmen said last night, about the digging and stuff, and she snuck in there one night with I can't remember his name, but she snuck in there and got into that tunnel a couple of years ago.
Maybe with Bouval?
No, it was Champion's son. A Champion. The guy Champion that set the world record for running up and down the Sphinx.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, but okay.
Okay, well, he was in the Guinness Book of World Records like 100 years ago for getting up to the top of the Great Pyramid in 4 minutes and then down in 3.5. Some crazy thing.
Oof.
But his I think it was his son. I could be wrong. Carmen, you're probably listening. Don't smack me too hard for this. But anyway, a guide took her down and she was able to enter when everybody was denying that it even existed. And so that Zahi knew about this for years. And I just don't get it. And I think it's a great question. Why stand in denial? She said last night, it's a perfect example of not only your impression, but she said that she sat in his office and she asked for something, some photographs. Oh, they don't exist. And so she stood there for a minute. They had a standoff with Hakeem, the famous Hakeem, who's no longer with us.
Sure, I know Hakeem.
Yeah. And finally, the meeting of the minds cleared, and he opened up his top desk drawer and took the photographs out that she was asking about that he said that didn't even exist. So that, it's there, his reputation.
Well, you know what? How about this? Zahi might be part of an Egyptian version of the Mirage Man.
Yeah, bing, 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 bing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not entirely his fault, but he is a part of that system.
He's following instructions and the money. That's it.
I'm sure that's got to be some part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be a guest on the show next week here on Fade to Black. He's going to be right here with us. All right. Did I miss phone calls? 323-825-5045. Hey, Mike Bara is in the chat room too. Bara, you want to call in and and talk some Mars stuff. We're going to go there right now, too, as well. And maybe we'll tell the story of you, Bear, and I in the chat or on the post last week. That was actually pretty funny. What do you think? There seems to be, I get something once a day now emailed to me. It's another new picture of something on Mars. And I have, there's certain things on Mars that I will never agree to. I won't. I depend on my eyes. But there are some photographs that have been surfacing lately that, and like I said, it seems like it's daily. There's enough researchers out there that are poring over every single image, everything that is new, everything that is out there. They're ripping through the backgrounds and really looking. There seems to be a lot of stuff surfacing. You and I have been talking about it now for a couple of weeks. Where's this coming from, and what's it going to lead to?
Well, I think there's a bigger interest of people like, obviously, like Mike Bara, that are getting the information out there and piquing more people's interest to start being the home maven and, power through thousands of images and look for things. The challenge, obviously, is that whether the images are high resolution enough, being able to determine some of these items and see whether or not they're possibly a shape of a technology item or some artifact. Sometimes it's questionable. Now, there are obviously enough of these that do merit a discussion. Anyone can look at the Cydonia region or various other highlight top-level pieces that get attention. But the other part that I'd like to at least point out is that there's a lot of geological data as well that's starting to come out from both ESA and NASA, where we see the surface of Mars being portrayed in a different light, more hospitable, more possibly containing vegetation, methane in the atmosphere. So there's other variables outside of just scouring the archives for artifacts. We have to combine all of this data to get a picture, meaning if we find artifacts that there's life, we see that there's more signs to support life in the instrumentation and readings that we're getting. We see geological changes that water was once flowing to support life. So all of that, I think, needs to be mixed up into a big pot and stirred thoroughly.
And what for you, for me, let me back up. For me, the best evidence about life on Mars is that Mars used to be us at some point. It had water, and we're talking a long, long time ago, and now it's in the state that it is today. But that's our best evidence for that Mars used to be us. For you, where do you stand when we talk about the possibility of life on Mars? What's your best evidence?
I say waterfront property exists on Mars.
Exactly.
Just like on Earth,
right.
Everyone loves to live next to a lake or near an ocean. An ocean view is always very prominent real estate. That seems to exist on Mars as well. I say that because the region known as Cydonia, there's a clear geological change from where the face is situated, and it looks like to be more darker, mellow terrain, and all the pyramids and city-like structures that have been denoted that are on more of this brighter, knobby terrain. So there seems to be a shoreline where all of the structures that would be identified as city or pyramids are literally right on a very definable shoreline where the face is sitting out there in the water, just like the Statue of Liberty or some edifice like that. So I think it's interesting that we can track, again, some type of Mars-Earth connection by some of these locations.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black with Jason Martell. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
This is Bear from Santa Clara.
Hey, Bear. How are you tonight? Say hi to Jason.
Hi, Jason. How you doing? You know what's missing on Mars?
Say that again, Bear.
You know what's missing on Mars?
What's missing on Mars?
Starbucks.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. Everybody knows my love for Starbucks too, as well. I do recognize.
And bacon.
And bacon. What's your question tonight for Jason?
Actually, it was more of a, that 12-meter signal that everybody heard off of the thing?
Off of Malibu?
I used to work with side scanning radar at sometimes, okay? And that works at 6 meters, okay? 12 meters, I'm a ham, okay? And 12 meters is right in the ham band right there. And if they were doing underwater scanning, that would account for 12 meters and being reflected back up off that. And that's why that guy heard it. And it also accounts for the echo in the sound.
Oh, thank you for that. That's very, very, very interesting. I'll explain that to Jason, and he probably doesn't understand exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, because what it pertains to is I think it's probably some agency that's out there trying to three-dimensionally scan that area under the water.
Interesting. I don't know enough about it, but that is a very interesting point. All right. Anything for Jason before I let you go?
No, not really, except for just to say thank you for just a super great show, and it's been a really interesting night, Jason. So,
my pleasure, sir. Thanks for the call. It's interesting facts you have there.
Excellent.
All right, okay. Bear. Have a great night.
Be safe. Be well.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black with Jason Martell. Say hi to Jason. Who's calling?
Hi, Jason. It's Bob from New York.
Hi, Bob from New York.
What's up, Bob?
Hi. I just want to say I disagree with basically a lot of the things that you talked about. Mainly, Malin, JPL, NASA is a total lie. If you really want to know about Mars, go back to Gino Schiaparelli, Warren De La Rue, Percival Lowell. Those drawings are the correct Mars. That's why Mars is so blurry. They don't want you to know the truth. Mars is a giant sculpted object. If you had a clear picture from anything, from any rover, from any satellite, you would see that. But they definitely do a good job of keeping that information from the public. What do you think? That Percival Lowell and Gino Schiaparelli were hallucinating? Those were highly detailed drawings. Then, after, let's say 1905, there was absolutely nothing until 1965 when Mariner 4 shows up. And in that time, giant telescopes were created. The 200-inch, what was it called? I can't remember.
Well, that's okay, Bob. But
it's okay. I'll address this comment. So thank you. I appreciate your passion, caller, and I don't think anyone's in disagreement with what you said. There's obviously a different perspective of the views of Mars than what we're being told by the mainstream companies. So
no, he brings up a great point. All of the original, the canals, all of the drawings and the view that we had of Mars early on, and it's not like those guys didn't have accurate telescopes. They did, and they could see it, and they were mapping and drawing. That view of Mars today is completely gone and has been eradicated. Why do you think that is?
You're right. Well, the only analogy I could give is similar to what we did with the moon landings. Everyone debates whether we actually landed on the moon, and it's one of those things where if we landed men on the moon, which we did, that's a very large feat to have accomplished, and then to just stop, it doesn't make any logical sense. That's like Intel creating the Pentium chip, doon, 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 Pentium,
Right.
And then they would just make 100 megahertz version and then stop. It wouldn't happen. That's why today it's like 3 gigahertz or something. Point is, it's the same thing with our space exploration. I don't think we went to the moon and then stopped going. So the knowledge and things that we've gained about Mars, probably well into our past, has been somehow shrouded by its true nature of what's really there.
Why do you think we stopped going to the moon?
I think it's because we were told not to go. or there's something going on there that doesn't involve or conflicts with maybe, human civilization's desire to set up camp there. I mean, firsthand recollection from some of these astronauts are they're riding around in their buggy and they say, why do you send us here on a tricycle when the military is here in a Ferrari? Some of these things that they've reported by seeing a moon base in an actual city on the dark side of the moon, I think there's a lot of fact to this information, and we just don't have a lot of this freely available to us until we can get our own probes and civilian-controlled drones and such to be taking imagery that isn't filtered through the security blocks that we have.
Yeah, it seems that we were so excited, and I don't want to repeat myself here, but it seems like we were so excited for, it was such a great time, to be an American and see everything. It was just so much fun. And then the next thing you know, boom, they just pumped the brakes and stopped everything with no real explanation. Other than, it couldn't have been money. It was funded right. I don't think that was the concern. All of the research and the mechanisms and the logistics were in place to continue. And it just, we just stopped exploring. It just stopped. And we were only concerned with stuff in our own orbit. And we just left the moon completely alone. I just find that fascinating.
We talked about this before on your show. We'll bring up the Alternative 3 here in a moment. But the Brookings Institute was, hired by NASA in its inception, in NASA's creation. And Brookings Institute advised NASA that, if you ever find sensitive information about life on other planets or even bacterial evidence, this stuff would need to be quarantined, whether it's physical evidence or just the information itself. So NASA still clings to a lot of that data and policies for how they handle some of the more sensitive things that they might come across. The other part of this, though, is when we look through the cracks and see things like, back in the day, the Cold War between Russia and the United States, and then you see things like Alternative 3 playing out the idea that the Russians were landing on Mars in the 60s in full-color video.
Right.
Whether that's true or not, the idea is that, Russia and the United States were more than likely, the whole idea of a Cold War was just a huge facade to get money to power this secret space endeavor. And so for me, whenever I see things in the news today about some big war or a threat now even coming back from Russia or something like that, my mind turns to a different direction to say, well, then what are they hiding? What's really happening to divert us towards this mundane topic? So I don't know what's going on in the background, but it seems that for a long time there's been a coordinated effort to kind of keep a hush-hush about the events of what's going on in space. And we've been doing a lot of stuff in space. We just don't know anything about it. Another analogy would be simply this. The last time the U.S. government, or the U.S. Air Force, released a toy was the Raptor, just recently, and before that was the stealth craft, the B-2 and the F-117.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it, right? We hear rumors of an Aurora and things like that. Point is that we're due for a new surprise of technology to say, look at our new fleet of toys.
Mm-hmm.
It's been in existence for a long time. The toys don't just magically appear. They've been being developed for a long time. So if they're showing us the F-117 and the Raptor and these things, there are other things under wraps being developed that I think are soon going to make a debut. But who knows for sure? These will definitely be trans-atmospheric vehicles that go beyond suborbital space.
Nancy just tweeted, she says, Nancy Nurse, she says, please ask him if he thinks the government will step into SpaceX and start to control the things that they find.
I don't think NASA would step in, but the Department of Defense or DOD, DOD or NSA or some of these other agencies that have, satellites and things that are monitoring certain space, certain levels within our atmosphere. Yeah, I'm sure that there's probably going to be some treaties or things that are going to need to be in place. Otherwise, just like we've always had in the past. Anytime, let's say there's a probe we send to Mars or the Moon, and it has a public mission to take photographs or do some telemetry, it's very possible that probe also has Black Ops instrumentation installed on it.
Sure.
And it's taking its own readings that you just don't know about. Now, if for some reason that Black Ops instrumentation needs to take priority over the mission, oops, we lost our probe. Someone leaned on the console and we lost it. Sorry. But it continues to go and transmit its other instrumentation that's under the Black project.
Yeah, because we don't know. We don't know the truth.
No, that's happened many times.
Sure. We only know what we're told, which isn't much, and most of it isn't true. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Jason Martell.
Hi, Jimmy. It's me. It's Mike Bara.
Oh, hey, Mike. How are you? Say hi to Jason.
Hi. Hey, Jason. How you doing, man?
Hey, Mike. How's it going, man?
Good. I just wanted to tell you, you said a couple minutes ago, you said, hey, Mike Bara, get on the phone and call in, right?
Sure.
The instant you said that, all the power in my building completely went out. Everything. Just pitch literally as your voice was still echoing, call in, let's talk about Mars. It went black. I mean, the whole house, and it's been dead now for I don't know how long. I don't think somebody wanted me to call in, but they really didn't count on me having batteries in my phone.
Oh, that's really funny. Hey, Jason, have you ever had an experience like that? It seems like I have, and Mike just had. Have you ever had an experience like that where you think that, they're listening and you're suddenly uncomfortable?
Yeah, I know we're wrapping up my time tonight, and that might be another show's discussion, but definitely yes. Just to quickly touch on that, I had a partner, gentleman named Chris, and we had an actual piece, supposedly of the Roswell craft, and this was in I think 2004 or something. We tried to do a live webcast, and had double-blind analysis from New Mexico Tech and Los Alamos Labs, and when we tried to go and do this event, a lot of weird things happened with our server, all of a sudden being erased with data. We had a scientist from SDSU that was literally somehow demoted to a janitor. At least when we tried to find him, he was on record as a janitor. So, yeah, that might be a discussion for another interview, but I have seen a few weird things happen around trying to bring certain information out to the public.
And Mike, I'll throw this out to you. We were talking last week, the three of us, about discussing this tonight. There seems to be a lot of, over the last couple of months, a lot of photographs of Mars surfacing. Some of it old, a lot of it new. But there's a lot of chatter going on right now. What do you think is causing all of this?
Well, part of it is just people like, your audience are looking at these rover pictures. And I mean, there's just incredible stuff. There's little bits of technology all over the place. I have a friend, Kimberly Reck, a Facebook friend, and she's a gearhead. She rebuilds muscle cars basically for fun. And, I'll find something on Mars and I'll send her a picture and she'll go, oh yeah, that's a heat exchanger. Oh yeah, that's a piston head, with a heat sink on it. And it's really incredible. And somebody, sent me a picture the other day or posted online, a photograph of something that clearly looks like it's a spiral, seashell type of thing. It looks like a snail shell, a big elongated snail shell right near the foot of the rover. And so there's just people out there looking and they're finding this stuff that just really, we've talked about it kind of back and forth, Jimmy, the last month or so, 2 months. There's just all kinds of incredible stuff on Mars. All you have to do is look, and we've got this army of people out there looking. So, I think that's where it's coming from.
Do you think we're on the verge of, I think they're a little out of control, or they don't have the control that they once had. And certainly everybody's got software and they're able to enlarge and enhance and take a peek at backgrounds. But it seems like there's a lot of it out there now. Are we on the verge of some type of disclosure with Mars? It kind of feels that way. I've never had this kind of chatter before, not since 1995 with Hoagland on Art Bell.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm not a disclosure believer. I'm just not. I don't think government's ever going to really reveal anything because, if you've got people that are in charge, right, you're at the top of the food chain, politically, and you introduce a destabilizing element into that political equation, And believe me, any kind of disclosure, whether it's in Planet X, whether it's life on Mars, even bacterial life, or whether it's actually an ancient civilization, that's destabilizing. So the only thing that can happen to you if you're the president or the leaders of Congress is you can go down. You can't go up because you're already at the top, right?
Right,
so,
right.
To my mind, I'm not a big believer in disclosure. But look, I'll go. I want to give Jason time. I just want to come in and quickly say hi and just
No, it's
Jason.
good to hear from you, Mike. And I actually wrapping up my time here, as Jimmy knows, here at 9:30. So if you'd like to
okay. Well, then
continue on, please. Don't go on my behalf.
Hey, Jason. Thank you for coming on with us, my brother. And we've got a lot to talk about. So, but everybody, Jason.
My pleasure always.
Yeah, JasonMartell.com. Just head straight over there. Everything that you need is there. Ancient schools and everything else. All of his videos, everything is posted, and you can go check it out. Thank you so much, Jason. You have a great night.
Thank you, Mike. Jimmy, take care. Bye-bye.
All the best, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Jason rocks.
Jason rocks unbelievably. You know what? I'm gonna bring in this other caller. This is Steve from Bluefield. Just stay with us, Mike. Steve,
Sure.
Are you with us?
Yes, brother, I'm here.
Hey, say hi to Mike Bara. Jason just left. Say hi to Mike Bara.
What's going on, Mike?
Hey, how are you, man?
Doing good, brother.
What an incredible show tonight, huh, Steve?
Oh, it's wild. I was really wanting to talk to him some more about Mars.
Well,
I mean, it's crazy. God, the stuff that's being revealed to us right now.
Everything that has been popping up, and I get it daily. I know that Mike does too, and it's almost too much to absorb. And I've had Stu's been on this show, and we don't need to go there. But for me, some of the older stuff compared to the newer stuff, the older stuff just takes a little bit more for me to be convinced about it. But when I start looking at some of this new stuff that is popping up, and I look, it's like, come on, Mike, I made this statement the other day, and I think I said it on one of your threads. But look at it like this: if you were walking down the beach and you looked down and found a rock that had an impression in it, like that spiral, that cross that we were talking about this week, Mike, and you look down,
right,
yeah, and you look down and you picked up a rock and it had that in it, your brain doesn't say, oh, that's natural. No, you look at it and you go, wow, that's an ancient fossilized something man-made in this rock, and this is really cool. That's what you do. And when I see this stuff, that's the way my brain works with it. My brain isn't saying it's natural. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the same effect that these pictures have on me all the time. I've got a mechanical engineering background, and I've seen lots of different types of sheet metal parts and mechanical devices and parts on airplanes and pumps, and and when I see them in real life on Mars, I just recognize the shapes, pretty much instantly. So I'm the same as you are, and yeah, that thing is it's some kind of pipe with with like a valve on it, a little handle just to twist it, and it's fossilized. It's buried in the rock. It's now emerging up out of the rock, as happens with fossilized mechanical stuff. I mean, Jimmy, you can even see that the pipe goes on behind the little wheel thing there.
Yeah.
And then it flares out at the top. And that's, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done any plumbing. I have, but that's how you design pipes, so the other pipe can come and screw into the top. Now, that's mechanical. And there's so many things like that on these pictures. It's just, it's really flabbergasting. And what we're seeing now with the rovers is we're just seeing tons and tons of these things, these leftover bits of this advanced civilization that still had to, they still had to run water and stuff. And that's all you're seeing is you're just seeing the junk left behind from whatever happened to them.
Hey, Steve, I know you have a question for Mike, but have you seen, Mike and I posted the pictures of, or reposted, of I called it the howitzer. Did you see those images we posted on the net?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know how big that object is. Whoa! If you could post the howitzer pictures, if there's enough time. that is clearly.
When you look, I mean, it's a lot more than just pictures, though, Jim. You got a lot of people that are coming forward. Kerry Cassidy just done an interview with a fellow that said that he had been to Mars, quite a few times, and I guess was a Marine, and had some altercations with some extraterrestrials on Mars, and then at the International Ufology Conference that was held, I guess last week, there were some people that got on there and was discussing how many times that they had visited Mars, and there's a lot of people that's coming forward that have are saying that they've been to Mars.
Wait, Mike, what do you make of that? Do you think? Look, I know you think about you're confronted with this all the time too, as well. Do you think there is some secret program that we don't know about, that we have been going back to the moon and we have been going to Mars and we just don't know about it, and finally people are just surfacing and starting to disclose this, or is it just crazy talk?
It's probably both. I mean, I don't know, again, some of these stories are pretty wild, and there's no evidence to back them up or corroborate them. It's just somebody telling a story. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not telling the truth. It's just there's no evidence to support it. But I will tell you this: I do know somebody, and he's a nationally known name. It's not Richard Hoagland, who told me a story, and his dad worked at TRW back in the 60s during the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo programs, and he swears up and down that he was sitting in the pool. He used to have barbecues up in Palos Verdes, which is up north of Redondo or south of Redondo Beach.
Right.
And he's telling me he's got pictures of him as a little kid. He's a little kid with Gus Grissom and Ed Mitchell and Gordon Cooper and a lot of these different Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts. And, he says up and down that he's sitting there in his pool one time when he's 8 or 9 years old, and Gus Grissom, before he passed away in the mid-'60s, goes off on this rant about how we're just spamming a can, and hell, they've been to Mars, they've been to the moon and back, all the really good stuff they keep for the secret military guys. We've had flying saucers since the 1950s. We can go anywhere we want and see anything we want, and there's all kinds of stuff up there. And, this is a guy, again, whose name would be known to your audience, and I believe him. When I listen to him tell me this story, I believe him. And he's even got pictures from the barbecue, and, there's the guy.
Wow.
So, it's like, but it's still just a story, but you do hear these stories. And it's like, that implies to me that there's always been kind of a secret parallel space program. Now, what is kind of interesting is that I don't think Werner von Braun knew about it, because he was kind of off trying to figure out a lot of things about how to get to the moon. And there's a really interesting story with that. So it's almost like the whole public space program was completely sequestered from this private space program.
Sure.
But again, when people come out and say, I teleported to the moon from this building in Redondo Beach at Northrop Grumman or TRW, I've been in that building and I didn't see a teleporter, but I haven't been on every floor and scoured every inch of it, but I didn't see a teleporter on the 6th floor, at least it's not there today. So, I don't know. I don't know about those stories.
Well, and Steve brings up a good point, too. And, Steve, I know you've got a question for Mike. I just want to make one thing clear. Jason brought this up earlier, too, as well. You don't know until it happens. In other words, Ben Rich said at Skunkworks, he said very clearly, was quoted, "We have the capability to take ET back home." Okay, so and I believe that. And when Ben Rich, who ran Skunkworks, says something like that, whether it's off the record or on the record, it doesn't matter. When he says that, I tend to believe it. And
yeah, I agree with you. He's a person of credibility when it comes to that. So
exactly the point. Hey, Steve, do you have a question for Mike real quick?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to pose the question to him that we had on Fader Night, Jimmy. How does he feel that the public would react to disclosure if the government finally came out and said, "Hey, here it is," and lay it all out there? Do you think they'll go crazy? People will go crazy, or do you think we would embrace it?
No, I think we'd be fine. I think most of us would embrace it. But see, again, because I think it's really destabilizing to political structures, I don't think they're officially ever going to do anything. I think, God bless his heart, I don't want to say his name, but certain people who are into this whole disclosure thing, they're kind of barking up the wrong tree, because I think disclosure is happening all around us by the fact that they're letting these pictures out that aren't censored. I mean, they'll censor the super obvious stuff, but again, if you're smart and you know what the game is and you know where to look, you can find stuff. You can find stuff on pictures of Mars. You can find stuff on pictures of the moon. So to me, it's like de facto disclosure. Is that the right term? Do I mean de facto or de jure? I don't know. It's essentially disclosure for all intents and purposes, but without ever saying anything official. And I think that's what we're going to get, Jimmy. We're just going to keep getting more and more stuff released all the time, and to the point that the general public is just going to accept it, as just, oh yeah, there's aliens. And I think that that's kind of what the plan has been from the beginning. Jason mentioned the Brookings report, and that's essentially what it calls for. So that's where I think we're at. I really believe that that's the way disclosures is actually happening all around us. It's not ever going to be Obama from the White House with the white pane windows saying, yeah, there's aliens. We lied to you for 60 years.
Thank you, Steve. All the best, brother.
Jimmy, thanks for the time, brother.
Always.
And what's up to all the fate or not, man?
You got it. Hey, we got an announcement here. Faders.org is going to play the Rosetta mission at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what time is that out here? Is that 3 hours or 4 hours? It's 3 hours. So
5:30, yeah.
5:30 a.m. Mike, you going to stay up with us?
Oh, yeah. You and I will be up for that, right? We could live block it. Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Oh, man. I can't believe this is actually going down. I really want to stay up and watch it. It was like, the moon landing in 1969.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that I caught that, and I know that you did, too. My thing with disclosure, or a seminal event, and I mentioned this, I think, last week on the show, which is if a UFO landed on the 405 and blocked traffic, it would make news for a little bit, but pretty soon everybody would start complaining about getting that saucer moved. That's what it would be.
Yeah,
about.
Let's get the dang thing. Yeah, I have to get to the Viper room this weekend. Can we get the saucer out of the way?
Yeah, right.
That kind of thing. And I'd be like, I don't care about that. Is Brandon Meade on injured reserve for the Seahawks or what? Is he going to play this weekend?
Yeah, right.
So it's Jimmy. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. I think that it's just going to be little disclosures constantly, and there's never going to be one big thing because that's too overwhelming. And it's funny you brought up 2001 earlier in the show, 2001: A Space Odyssey and Interstellar, because in 2001, that's what the whole movie was about. I mean, Kubrick was flat out. He stated in interviews that it was all about the Brookings report. I mean, he could quote it chapter and verse, and that's really what the film was ultimately all about. So,
have you seen Interstellar? Have you seen it yet?
Yeah. I saw it last Friday. Yeah, I did.
And
actually, well, I'm going to write a piece about it tomorrow. I really liked the movie. First of all, I really enjoyed it. It was very engaging and emotional. It tried to be a film along the scale of 2001, but it had a much more human element to it. I mean, the thing about 2001 is it's really cold and it's really intellectual. There's no heart in 2001, but this film has a lot of heart, and it does engage you. I mean, girls will actually like it. Yes, dudes, you can take your wives to this movie. You can take your girlfriends because there'll be some really nice, touching moments. But, it just kind of got me that the science, they're kind of passing it off as hard science. And, wormholes are not hard science. They're pure speculation. Nobody's ever observed a wormhole. I don't think anybody ever will. I'm not even sure they exist. So it's kind of interesting from that standpoint. But, it's funny how they kind of have talked about how Interstellar's got this real hard science as opposed to Star Trek or Star Wars. Well, I think those are just as hard a science as Interstellar was. But I thoroughly enjoyed the film and would absolutely recommend it to anybody who likes any kind of sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, I've got to get out and check it out. I'll have to wait until the weekend. Unfortunately, I've been busy, and I can't do fun things that everybody else to go.
What have you been up to? What's been going on? Really? I kind of thought your life was calm and boring. Look, once you get past the idea of Matthew McConaughey as an astronaut, then once you buy into that, then you're okay.
I'll buy into Matthew McConaughey as anything. I think he's awesome. Hey, Mike, thanks for calling tonight, man, and I'll hang out with you tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
You got it. Mike Bara, everybody. So we're winding down another night. Thanks, Mike. Interstellar, I've got calls backed up here, and I didn't want to join in any calls. Oh, you know what? We have enough time for one more call. Hi, who's calling? You're live on Fade to Black.
Well, there's only one person to call at this time.
Oh, hey, Star 6. How are you, sir? What's going on tonight?
Well, I tell you, this whole week has been twisting my head right off. I mean, really, hey, Vadernuts, buckle up. I've got something to share with Mike, and I know I missed him, but listen, we are headed for the ion fields. Everybody, pay attention. Ions are very important. And also, I didn't mean to do a plug the last time I talked to you about Les Schwab. I was just fooling around with the fact that with my UFO, I like doing the crop circles using Les Schwab tires. It makes a great circle. And I know I talk too much, but I had to bring out something tonight. I wanted to ask him if he could explain the story that occurred when, I always mispronounce this. I love it, though. It's turned out to be fun. That is, Voyager, as in Voyager. Voyager came alive. It's out in the old bliss. And all of a sudden, NASA focused the telescope on it for the first time in history. I thought he could explain that as well. I would like to mention one other thing that he could explain that you did hear, Jimmy. That was earlier this week. And that is about nanotechnology. Now, this is a very serious issue in the future. And I mean, just as soon as I get through my vetting with you, after your team does their research and everything I sent you by email, one of the issues that I think most Vadernauts do not understand is nano and this issue about why NASA refocused the telescope on the Voyager. As in 1977, a launch in 1977, and it's still ticking, still alive. I mean, come on. Now, I did tell you, that means every time I call in now, I have to get dressed. I can't be out there in the universe in the nude. And you know what? I love what's going on this week, and I'm going to start a new system. Yes, I'm going to have the Jimmy Church rating system. Not for each guest, no. Each guest is just super hot on this show. But I'm going to do it for the universe because I'm telling you, there's about 1 billion angels up here just roaring. Every time you crack a joke like you did tonight, I mean, we are so happy, and that's what joy really means to a Vadernaut. I mean, the fact that we can actually change things, Jimmy. I got to go, Jimmy. I got an appointment. I'm rehearsing. I'm getting in makeup, by the way. I'm getting ready for an interview. Did I ever tell you that story? Some other time. Got to go.
Talk to you. Thank you. That is Star 6, everybody. And Dino, I just put you to the front of the line. Sorry about that. I cut everybody off just to finally get to you. How are you tonight, Dino?
Hi, I'll be very concise. I'm pretty good. I just wanted to say everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got expertise. I know a little bit about politics. I was inside and outside of them. And I want to say that the converse to what a lot of people said just recently about disclosure, you never change anything. And only a small minority of people ever change anything. It's always what's happened. And anything that's being dangled, any of this evidence that's out there that we talk about, we still have to make the push. Because if you don't, why do we have freedom? That's the point I wanted to make, that everybody the rest of this month needs to continue to tweet their representatives. We've got to make sure that we ask for congressional hearings, even to hear them deny it or maybe call us nuts if that's what happens. But it is possible to happen. William of Wallace made it happen. We wouldn't have a constitution if it weren't for people like him.
Thank you so much for that. And it is all very, very important. I have gotten so many private messages, not only on Twitter, but Facebook and email, thanking me for the support of Stephen Bassett and the constant discussion of disclosure on this show, however it would happen, from whatever direction. And that makes me feel really good, but it also just lets me know that people are listening, and that's what I really dig. So I thank you for that.
And it's not just Bassett. I don't want to make this about personalities. A lot of people here in our group love Richard Dolan. I think that the guy is an intelligent, precise, and a research person, and he's for it. And I keep telling people, read the book AD After Disclosure. Yes, it's 600 pages, but if you read it a little bit at a time, he lays out all the possible things that might happen and how we're only heading to disclosure, that it will not be avoidable. And so even some of those like Eugene and other doubtsayers, I respect a lot of their thoughts, but, everybody's got an opinion, and we still have to try.
You're absolutely right, Dino, and I really thank you for that. And, again, another great call from the great Dino. Thank you, Dino, the God.
Thank you for picking up. I'll hear you tomorrow. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Dino, the Godfather. All the best. All right. Wow, we're winding down. We're at the end. What a great show tonight. Thank you, Jason Martell, Michael Bara called in. Dino made it in. Star 6 made it in. Steve made it in. Just a great night here. Thank you. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Bespoke radio for the masses. Tomorrow, Paul Moeller will be with us. Moeller International. What happened to the world of tomorrow? That's the guy that's doing it for us right now. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Sky Watchers Radio. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vateau, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Graphics by Method. Music by Doug Aldridge, this guy right here. That's right. Intro by Space Boy. Check out Doug right here. Don't you wish you played guitar like that? You know you do. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to be safe, be well, live life, love. And I'll see you guys tomorrow right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. See ya!